email you a receipt on
I'm sure
that?
they'll be, the Jim's gonna post the pictures and they're gonna link me. And so my name's gonna be out there, people are gonna see it. We're part of something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it went out as an email. Yeah, it went out as an email. Yeah, yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Joe, you doing all right?
Right. This is the agenda. 24 hours technically. Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Sure. Yeah. You bet. Good. Good. I'm glad you do. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. We want people to understand. All that stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. I hope it goes away fast for you. I hope it goes away fast for you.
Mama said never hit a girl.
Okay, I think we're ready to begin. I'd like to welcome everybody tonight to our city council meeting. It's August 24th. It's now 6 p.m. and all council members are in attendance. We'll begin with a pledge of allegiance by myself, and then we'll have a prayer by Councilman Halverson. Please stand and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, as we come before you this day, we're so very thankful that we can gather here in our public meeting and to discuss the needs of our city. And we pray that that will help us to understand the issues before us, that we might make the best decisions we can at this time. Father, we're thankful for all of our law enforcement, our emergency responders, and our armed forces. We ask you to watch over and protect them, that will help them to return home in safety and to be with their families. We ask you to be with those throughout the world who are in danger and are having troubling times, that will watch over and protect them as well. They were thankful for the country which we live in and that allows us to be here. And we say this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you, Councilman Halverson. Before we go to public comment, I just want to recognize Annette Ray Gardner. She passed away on August 17th. She's a longtime resident of South Weber that served 2 terms on city council. And I just wanted to thank her and her family for her service to South Weber City. And we will miss her. All right. We'll now open our public comment. Please state your name and address. Individuals may speak for 3 minutes or less. Please address the entire council and know that we won't respond during public comment. We're now open for public comment.
Okay, Jessica Mangano Martinez, 8237 South, 2600 East. As many of you are aware, South Weber City's fire department is taking on a new role of EMTs, and they have therefore requested additional space in Central Park. Many argue to retain Central Park as it is and allow the fire department to build out from the areas already granted to them. There are individuals questioning where we would hold our annual week-long festivities of Country Fair Days if the fire department is granted their request. Our recreation area exceeds what is considered healthy recreational space for a city, which is 1 acre per 100 population. As of 2019, South Weber had a population of 7,381. We should have approximately 74 acres of recreational space. Currently, we have 67 acres of developed park space, not including Cedar Loop Park, Veterans Memorial Park, or Silverleaf Park. We also have 160 acres of Weber River corridor. It is safe to assume we have exceeded the recommended 74 acres of recreational space. The fire department is not asking for the entirety of Central Park. They are simply asking for a small portion of it in order to properly assist the citizens of South Weber with emergency needs. As for what additional space has already been allotted to the fire department, that space is not feasible. The old tennis court behind the fire department is currently landlocked. So as it sits currently, emergency vehicles stored in the rear of the firehouse are not able to exit the fire station without playing musical fire trucks and delay the response time. According to our fire chief, we are currently housing 2 brush trucks, 2 ambulances, a fire engine, and a squad vehicle. Our fire station currently has 3 bays or possible exits with 6 vehicles potentially needing to exit. How do you decide which 3 emergency vehicles are non-essential and hidden behind other emergency vehicles? The civic building is crumbling. It is not cost effective to rebuild it. Certain equipment is required by law to be housed outside of the firefighter's residence and is currently being stored there. We could tear down the civic building, build new storage behind the fire station, and build a narrow driveway between the 2 properties. However, do you want to force emergency vehicles to navigate down a narrow driveway and lower response times in an intense high-stakes situation? I believe more space is required to house equipment than what could be allotted by the property behind the fire station. I'm not sure how many of you have needed EMS services, how many of you have had your whole world stopped and become a blur as your loved one is being loaded into an ambulance. The most terrifying thing a parent can face is having to wait for an ambulance to arrive for your child. Those minutes, those precious minutes, will feel like an eternity. I unfortunately have had that experience. If it wasn't for the fast-acting fire department, EMTs, life flight, and surgeons, my son would not be here today. Were the fire trucks and ambulances not able to act in a fast manner due to having to play musical fire trucks or having to take a narrow driveway, my son would not have been administered the life-saving medication that allowed him to start breathing again. I hope that many of you will never have to experience that fear. I also hope that many of you would support the fastest response time our EMS can give for those that do have to experience that fear. Some argue we spend more per capita on our fire department than others. The fire department posted an ad for a paramedic starting at $16.50 an hour. McDonald's is offering $11 an hour. That's a $5.50 an hour difference for life-saving stuff. But I'm willing to put extra money into getting the best we can get for our fire department to save lives and property. I urge you to allow the fire department the space they need. We as a community have worked towards raising an upwards funds of $65,000 for additional pickleball courts so we can work as a community to raise funds to relocate a new Bowery and stage. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks, Jessica.
So Julie Losi, 2541 East, 8200 South. I actually have comments that I want to address to the council and to the mayor, as well as comments that I've been asked to read in by another citizen that wasn't able to attend. So I hope that will be allowed. First, I was just wondering if I can get an update on public comments that I had emailed in about the sign that's on the side of Highway 89. That's the big one that's actually advertising the turnoff to 193 that is still sitting on the side of the road. It's been there for over 6 months. I don't know if UDOT has any plans to address it, take care of it. It still also has the big metal posts that are all bent from one of our last storms that we've had. Also, the painting at the intersection of South Weber Drive and 2700 East. I'm just wondering if that is something that's been targeted and is going to be done soon, just because nobody seems to know where to stop when they're heading northbound on 2700, and just with the new no turn on red sign, just it would be nice if we could have that intersection and the painting of the lanes clearly delineated. And then another problem, I'm sure we've all seen it, we're all aware of it, is the exit on South Weber Drive on the northbound side. So east side of 89, we consistently have drivers, and I see this daily, trying to beat the traffic, trying to get ahead of everybody else and try to, save 5 minutes of time. And so they barrel down the exit and then they cut across that cement barrier to then get back onto Highway 89. And I'm wondering if concrete barriers is something that's maybe a cost-effective solution for being able to prevent that from happening, just because it might deter drivers from, again, they're not just speeding down the exit line, they're also going on the shoulder and trying to get ahead of people. That intersection has been a problem, but this is just a potential solution that maybe won't cost a lot, and it might help us just improve the safety of that intersection exit. So those are my public comments. The public comments that I'm being asked to read are from Amy Mitchell, 1923 Deer Run Drive. And I'm just going to read from her email that I believe was also submitted for public comment, so should be part of public record. Dear Mayor and City Council members, well, that was a crazy big packet. Thank you all for the hard work and effort to put it all together. I'm unable to attend tonight's meeting, but would like to share my input on a few things that stood out to me the most from the packet. Number one, hazard pay. I understand that the federal government is continuing to print money that can be handed out to every city across the country. As this money comes in, I would hope that our city would use it in the wisest ways possible. Paying our city employees hazard pay does not seem to be the best way for it to be spent. Having lived through the pandemic for well over a year and a half, we see how truly unhazardous working during the pandemic has been. The city officials were closed to the public for much of this time, and I don't see how anyone was put in any extra amount of harm's way except those working the long hours in the hospital, especially those seeing COVID patients. There are millions of other ways this money should be spent in our city, possibly on any of our infrastructure needs, such as water lines, sewer improvements, etc. I don't see that any employees anywhere should get back pay for a hazard they really weren't put into. Number two, the fire department dream project. I am shocked at this proposal. I ask you all to table this for a further discussion. To spend even more money on our fire department right now seems a little ridiculous. This seems to be a project that will never end. Maybe we should do more research in the community about how the citizens want to see this park reconfigured. There is no proposal on where to relocate the stage. Just take it out or make it completely unusable. We just got through Country Fair Days, and we all saw how needed that park is and how much it gets used. Yes, it might just be 1 week a year, but it doesn't have to be. Maybe if that stage was fixed up a little and had a little money spent to improve it, we could do some kind of summer concert series, farmers markets, or something. We are a beautiful little city and have so much to offer. We should be capitalizing on it, not tearing it down. 3, Canyon Meadows Park. How much is too much? This park is way oversized, and it doesn't seem like there will be an end to the amount of money that it will take to finish it. Rather than putting in more grass and sprinklers, I would like to propose doing water-wise plantings and xeriscaping more of the park. We have plenty of grass that needs to be maintained. It makes me heartsick to think that Cherry Farms will get pushed off yet again so that money gets sent to Canyon Meadows. Maybe Cherry Farms doesn't need a crazy baseball diamond with dugouts that we were promised. Maybe we need it just to be cleaned up. Add some good dirt and fencing. Let's work more efficiently within what we have. The last thing the city needs is more parks that need to be watered and mowed. Cherry Farms is a sad little park, and it seems to be the one that gets what is left over. Maybe this should also be brought to the citizens to see how they would like that money to be spent. If it was earmarked for Cherry Farms, use it there for something rather than nothing. It seems to me that citizens committees would be a huge help in making some of these choices. I'm sure there are plenty of citizens who would like to give input on many of these things if they were asked. Can I recommend that our city does a town hall to help us understand where we are at on some of these things, the reasoning behind the expense? The more information, the better equipped we are to not only understand, but to give even more insight. Thank you for your time, sincerely. And again, this is comments read for Amy Mitchell. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
Then Paul, 826 East South Weaver Drive. You probably think I'm up here to talk about the dogs that run around in parks every day, but I've given up on this council ever trying to enforce any of those ordinances. So we'll wait till we get a new mayor, new council. Hopefully they'll do something. Two things that they've talked about the fire department, you know, and I want a good fire department, and I want to be able to save everybody we can. There's got to be some way for them to live within the space they've got, or else, you know, maybe we can take the excess stuff they have. The city's got what, 9-10 acres down the bottom end. Could some of their stuff be used, stored down there that they don't have to have immediately? Rather than to take out the Bowery and the stage, would it be cheaper to put a hole in the back of the building so you can drive straight out there and put bays on the back of the building so you can get better utilize the space you've got there? It kind of reminds me of the camel that ended up inside the tent. Remember, he wanted to get his head out of the storm, the sandstorm, and he says, "Let me put my head in your tent." and pretty soon he was all the way in. And that's what the fire department is. They just keep expanding. On this free money that everybody seems to, I call it Biden money. I would like to see if the city gets money, that they use it for something, build something special. Instead of just put it in wages or help pay for this part, create something so that commemorates, if you will, the money that the city got from COVID. It's gift money. Take and fix something that's good here. Your grandkids and great grandkids will be paying for it, hopefully. But I would just hate to see it just disappear with nothing really to show from what they've got. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Lynn.
Lynn.
Is there any further public comment? All right. Then we will close public comment. Did council want to respond to anything, or shall we move on? Okay,
I can respond to a couple. And just so that people understand, we're not ignoring a few things like the people doing the U-turn over on 89. It's obviously UDOT issue. The Public Safety Committee has been on that every single time with the sheriff. Same with the broken sign. And so it's getting worked on. It's just not getting a lot of response. And we will address the painting as well. Also, the money that we've been giving, people just need to understand that it has certain stipulations and how we can spend it. You got a lot of rules to it, and we're still trying to sort through those rules. So anyway, that's all.
thank you, Councilman Halverson. All right, if there's nothing else, we will move to presentations. We have a couple of new employees, and I'd like to turn the time over to Dave before we introduce them.
Thank you. This is one of my favorite agenda items that we ever get to do, and that is to introduce some of the new members of the South Weber team. And we've got 2 new full-time employees that have been hired in the last couple of months. But before we introduce those 2, I would like to introduce our summer intern who has been with us for the last 3 months. She did not know that she was going to be spotlighted tonight, but I hope that you had a wonderful experience reading through the budget document and noticed how that is a new and updated and more informational document for the public's consumption. That she was the brainchild behind that and was able to put a lot of time into that this summer, along with a whole bunch of other projects. So this is her last week with us. So the timing is awkward that way, where we're saying hello and goodbye at the same time. But Alicia Springmeyer, will you stand up for a second? Just want to say thanks to Alicia for all that she's done. And again, it's hello and goodbye. But as you look at the budget document, and as well as the city works on a whole bunch of other projects in the future, she's been able to touch a lot of different aspects of the organization and provide some really great work product, and was a real wonderful member of the team while she was here. So thanks to Alicia.
I was going to ask who did that.
That was my
You,
question
Alicia.
too. I was
know.
gonna say,
Great
who did all the
pics and
pictures?
graphics, and yeah, really nice.
If I could just add to that, I've been able to work with Alicia on, and Trevor, who's coming, on our PR and our website. She's been a huge help to our website. Couldn't have done it without her. So thank you very much for your time with us.
Thank you, Alicia. We'll miss you.
I know this is out of order from the agenda, but first I'd like to introduce Corey Wilson, who's newest member of our Public Works Department. Corey comes to us with more than 15 years experience working for other cities, and he's already become a very valuable member of our team. And according to his department director, Mark Larson, just a real peach to work with. So, so that was. Yeah. So Corey, will you come up to the microphone here? And
Mark said peach.
He said it in a very nice way. That may not have come across in the same way he said it, but we're glad that Corey's here.
Thank you. I've never been called that before. Well, been at this a long time, 2 great kids, been married 100 years. We'll see where this venture takes me. Any questions, concerns, comments?
No?
I live, Layton. Yeah. I did do a 6-year tour here, though. It was a great little town. Yeah.
Welcome, nice hat.
Thank you.
I like that. Yeah, welcome, Corey. We're excited to have you, part of our team.
What capacity, what role will you be filling? Doing-
Wherever I'm needed. Right now, we're spending a lot of time at parks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 15 years of experience in other cities.
Yeah.
Which one was your favorite city?
Well, the last month and a half has been pretty amazing.
Very well
played,
done.
Corey, well played.
You might go a long way. Talk like a politician.
All right, well,
Welcome.
Thank you.
welcome, Corey.
Welcome, Corey.
Yeah, we're excited to have you.
So the other employee that has been with us now for just over a month is Trevor Cahoon. He has filled the position of Community Services Director, the new position that we created at the start of this fiscal year, July 1st. You've probably already seen his work a little bit in Planning Commission meeting. He will be fulfilling a number of different roles with us. And Trevor, how about you take a second and introduce yourself?
So Dave said that I have to sing my favorite song. So
That's not true.
no, I'm really
I
not a
did
great
nix
singer.
his desire to do a choreographed routine.
I wanted to sing "Let's Get Together" from The Parent Trap, but Dave did not want to comply. I'll wear him down. I am really happy to be here. It's been a lot of fun the last month and a half. Normally there's a honeymoon period for a new job. I think that was like a week, and I've fully integrated. So it's really exciting to be here. A little bit of background on me. I grew up in Clinton, live in Clearfield now. Went to school at Sunset Junior and Northridge High. So I have that in common with everyone else in the city, right? So I have a wife and four kids. They're all boys, ranges 8 to 1. So they keep us on our toes and keep us busy. They're a lot of fun though. And been doing city work for the last 5 years. Before that, I was in the private sector doing marketing and communications. That's my undergrad, and my graduate degree is in public administration. So it's a lot of fun to start stretching those muscles, and it's been really fun to have conversations with all of you on what we can do to make South Weber better and function better for our residents and listen to our residents. So is there any burning questions about me that you've been wanting to ask for the last month and a half? Oh, I thought Blair had one. I was like, ooh, let's hear it.
No, you answered all mine.
I did not get my MPA from BYU because I abstained from bad schools. So
That might have been my question.
Wow.
So
Is that a tear, Dave?
I'm hurt. I'm hurt real deeply. there.
I didn't disclose that until now with him. He didn't know that I was not a BYU fan.
I knew that.
But
Well, I think South Weber City offers you a lot of different, variety of training in different areas, and so that you can be very well-rounded in this
absolutely.
atmosphere. So,
Absolutely.
and you've been doing a great job so far. We're just really pleased with everything you're doing. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, and welcome
Welcome,
again.
Trevor.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, our next item is our Country Fair Days Committee, whom we love. And I'm going to turn the time over to Haley too.
So we just finished up the best week of the year. Country Fair Days was amazing this year. And it's not even possible without our wonderful chairs. So Holly Williams and Vicki Christensen and Tawny Lynch. The amount of work that these ladies put into this is incredible. I know that it takes up their entire summer. I know that they're trying to be wives and mothers and tote their kids around to everything. And there was a few events where I was there enjoying it, and they were at every event just making sure everything's rolling great. And it was fantastic. The planning takes place early in the year when we're not even thinking of Country Fair days. They're already getting prepared. And we just owe you such a huge debt of gratitude. This Country Fair days was awesome. I hear the golf tournament was an amazing turnout. I love the new traditions. I know we all did. But one thing that was really clear to me is that South Weaver missed getting together last year. And it was so great to be able to be together and to have a place where we could go and do that. And we are the only city that offers a week-long event like this. There's nothing else like this. So it's really unique to South Weaver, and it wouldn't happen without you ladies. So thank you so very much for all of that and your sacrifice.
And speaking of forever, she's the one that put these packs together. They're actually representative of all the different activities from Fair Days.
I have been known to craft.
There it is. Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor, we make one final note on that. We also have been informed that Vicki and Holly, they are retiring. Tawny's going to stay on for another year. So this was their last year as chairs, and we are looking for, or they are looking for replacements. So,
Oh, my goodness.
I work for the city.
So my plea to everybody here and everybody who's listening, if you love Country Fair Days, come get involved and help keep this tradition keep going on. So thank you, ladies.
Oh, thank you so much. That makes me sad. I'm glad at least Tawny's staying on, but man, I don't know how anyone's gonna be able to fill all of your shoes. Well, we're glad you're staying on, Tawny. Oh, is he? Oh, that's
Thank you, ladies, very much.
Yes,
Yes,
thank
thank
you.
you.
All right, our next item is approval of the consent agenda, which consists of the July 20th, 2021 minutes, the July check register, and the preliminary June budget to actual. Are there any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Then do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, any further comments? We'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 Hi.
Aye.
And the motion carries. All right, our next item is the primary canvas of the 2021 election returns and certification of results. And we have that here in front of us. Is there anyone, Lisa, did you want to make a comment on this, or do we need to read through this? How do
Yeah,
I?
Yes, please state it.
Okay, so, okay, is that, so just the third page?
Yeah.
Okay, so the final tally is Rod Westbrook with 714 votes, Wayne Windsor with 665, and Lance Nelson with 580. And the total votes cast were 1,959. And I believe that was 42% voter turnout, which is not bad for a primary. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's really good. All right. Is that all I need to do then? Do we, do we need to vote on it? Okay, we need to certify it. So, do I have a motion to certify these results?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to certify the summary results for South Weaver City for South Weaver City Mayor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The next item is Resolution 21-41, certified tax rate of 0.001522. Each year, the city must adopt this certified tax rate to allow the county to collect property taxes in the city's behalf and distribute them to city once collected. On July 17th, 2021, the City Council held a Truth in Taxation hearing on the proposed certified tax rate of 0.001522. Is there anything that staff wants to add to that?
No.
Are there any comments or questions by council? Then do I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-41?
Mayor, I'll make that resolution to approve 21-41, the certified tax rate of 0.001522.
Excuse me, it's 2143.
2143. Yep.
I'm not sure.
No, that was changed back, correct, Lisa? It is 2141.
Okay.
Okay. And so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further comment? Then we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 And the motion carries unanimously. All right, next item, Resolution 21-42, final budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022 with the Consolidated Fee Schedule. All cities in Utah are required to adopt a city budget outlining expected revenues and expenditures for the next fiscal year. Staff and the City Council have worked together over the past several months to put together a balanced budget for all funds, which is fiscally responsible and meets the needs of the city for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. A public hearing was held on June 8th, 2021 for public comment on the tentative budget. Included as part of the budget is the comprehensive fee schedule, which will also become effective July 1st, 2021. All right, Mac or Dave, will one of you go over the changes to the tentative budget?
I'll let Matt go through those.
Okay, as you know, there's always changes that come along once we get going into the budget, and it was back in May when we presented the tentative budget. So there are a few changes. There was a change, then at the time we did the tentative budget, we did not know what the new tax rate was going to be. And so there was an increase of 100,000 in property tax, which is going towards the paramedic service. And we had the truth in taxation related to that. There was a slight increase that we approved the audit for this coming year. And so there's an increase of 2,000 in that particular line item. There's an increase of 116,000 for 9 months of paramedic service, which is an increase that we've done as we're moving over to the new paramedic service within the city. We have community services with the hiring of Trevor. Sometime when we put the budget together, we do not know what kind of health insurance benefits a new employee is going to do. And so we guessed that it was going to be single coverage. And so there's a change there. It has to do with the benefits and salary. And that's 23,000. And then we hired a new parks employee. And so similar changes a little bit, increase in the salary because of his experience. And also the benefits, insurance benefits that go along with it. There's what that increase is. We realized that we talked for some time of increasing our human resources software for tracking all the things. And that's one of the responsibilities that Trevor has. And we've been looking for software. And so and found some software that we feel will be very beneficial
for the operations of the city, and so there's a $10,000 increase there in the general fund. In the capital projects, we have a change, an increase in amount coming from the fund balance of $419,000. There was a typo of the transfer from the general fund, and that was a carryover from last year and not in this year's budget. And so there was a decrease there of 289. That's the bulk of the increase in the contribution from fund balance. There's some things in the street department. We've put in an increase of $20,000 to purchase a speed trailer and additional school crossing lights. When we put the budget together originally, we talked about both a speed trailer and the speed signs. And we put the signs in, but we missed putting the speed trailer in too. So that's where that increase comes. And then the next one on the streets, the project for the repair of the Posse grounds was not completed in last fiscal year, so we've rebudgeted $20,000 there. And we did not get the project, all the projects in Canyon Meadows did not get excuse me, it says Canyon Meadows. This is not Canyon Meadows, this is the Public Works. We did not spend the money that was allocated above the cost of the purchase of the property for the Public Works. And so that money, 90,000, is being rebudgeted. I apologize for the error in the intro. It says Canyon Meadows, and that is for the Public Works facility. And last, this came to the council previously, was that we could get a better pricing on our garbage cans if we bought in a larger quantity. And so we usually do 200. We bought 464, I think, this time. And so that's where this increase of 26,000 is for that additional garbage cans. We tend to run out of garbage cans every year towards the end. That's for people using more than one garbage can and for the growth of the city. And so those are the changes that occurs in the budget. There's one change in the consolidated fee schedule this time, and that was the addition of rental rates for the pickleball court and the basketball. And those rates are shown here in the consolidated fee schedule. And you have a red line version of the consolidated fee schedule that shows those rates for those two rentals. So that's what the changes that were made from the tentative to this final budget. I would just like to add, as David has said, I put together the tentative budget, and the budget that you have before you looks a whole lot better than my version. Alicia has spent a tremendous amount of time. I've worked with her, and to make a budget that is more informative and more colorful, and something that is not just a lot of facts and figures. The facts and the figures are still there, but it's more pleasant to read. And so she's done a great work and needs to be commended for that. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Mac. Are there any comments or questions by council? Okay, then do I have a motion to approve resolution 21-42?
I'll make that motion to pass resolution 21-42, the final budget fiscal year 2021 through 2022 with the consolidated fee schedule.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further comment? We'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 Okay, and the motion carries unanimously. All right, our next item is the ARPA's Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund Employee Premium Pay. And I'm going to turn the time over to Dave, I believe, to address that.
Yeah, I'll start off and then happy to answer any questions if you've got them. As was brought up in public comment and Blair's response, this ARPA money, American Rescue Plan Act money, is different from the previous CARES Act money and has quite a bit of specific rules related to how it can be used. And as staff has dug into that research and tried to come to understand what the options are, there's essentially three options for the city that we have in front of us for how we can spend this money. And those three options are the employee premium pay, money for infrastructure projects, specifically related to water and sewer, which we have come to be able to, we've learned recently that we can use some of that toward the new public works facility once we have that designed and ready to go. And then the other option is for cybersecurity. So we've been looking into cybersecurity options and we'll bring that information forward. The total amount of money that the city has available is coming to us in two different allocations, two tranches. We've received one, the second will come next year, and it will total just over $900,000. So the council has all discretion within those parameters that the law gives to us on how to spend that money. And we had previous conversation about those options generally. The item before you now is to make a decision, not on all of the money necessarily, but bringing forward one option which staff feels needs to be discussed sooner rather than later. And that is whether or not a portion of that money would be used for the employee premium pay. The item intro explains a little bit about that and gives options. Ultimately, the council has the discretion on whether or not to use it like that, of course. If you choose to use it like that, then you have direction from the law itself that no more than $13 an hour for actual hours worked. And so staff is bringing forward a recommendation essentially that you can, again, make decisions on however you'd like to recognize employees for the essential work done during the year period from March 2020 to the end of February 2021. Of course, the pandemic is still ongoing to some degree here, but that felt like that was the period of time that covered the majority of the work that was performed. It's not considered hazard pay. Hazard pay was a specific element in the CARES Act. The council did choose to use some of the CARES Act money for hazard pay last year, and that was specific to certain employees as part of the CARES Act. So this is a little bit different. This is considered premium pay, and that's the language of the act, not our words. And it's an opportunity essentially for the council to recognize the essential work done from employees throughout that pandemic period. But again, the length of time, the amount per hour is all up for the council's discretion. In the item intro, it does try to create a picture. There's a table there that shows if you picked $3 an hour up to the allowed maximum of $13 an hour, how much that would be for all employees in the city, and the percentage of the ARPA money that would be used for that. Just for ballpark figure, and again, this is not set in stone yet, but the cybersecurity amount of money, it's not a substantial amount. It is about $10,000 a year over a couple of different years, up maybe 3 or 4 years at the most, that the cybersecurity would be. So in some ways, I think the question before the council, of course, is if you want to do that, but also if you don't do that, what else would you spend the money on? And not to make it an either or, that's not the intent. But again, the options that are in front of us based on what the law allows are water and sewer projects, infrastructure project, and we do know of a major need of the public works facility. And so in some ways, it's a question of how much do you want to put ARPA money toward that related to the water and sewer portion, or put to the premium pay, as well as a small amount to cybersecurity. And the Clearfield experience recently with ransomware has put a little bit of a finer point on the need for that. Staff is researching that. Originally, that wasn't one of the major priorities, but that now I think is raising its level, and we've had conversations with our IT firm that's helped us understand that. And again, it's about $10,000 a year to put some additional protections in place for cybersecurity. And so that's hopefully the full picture of the options in front of the council. This is very much up to the council's discretion. My personal feel is that it's a great opportunity to use this money and be able to express gratitude for the public service that is being done by the employees throughout the pandemic period. But again, ultimately, that's a priority conversation that the council has full discretion over.
All right, thank you, Dave. Other comments or questions by the council?
So they just clarify on the sanitation and water infrastructure. Would that also apply to our reservoirs that need upgrade and other things along those lines? Would they qualify?
The law, as it is, says you can use the money to bring your facilities up to the national standards. If you have deficiencies, that's one of the major areas you can use it for. We have no deficiencies that are listed under the the water, let's say the Clean Water Act. Wayne will know will know drinking water, the drinking water. There's official titles for the two, one that covers water and one that covers the sewer. We've gone through all the lists of all the projects. I've reviewed them with our engineers to say, does this apply to anything? The only one that we have found is it can be used for an administrative building for water. And so,
to lead into that though, I mean, I'll kind of disagree a little bit, but we do have several projects that are considered deficient. That's why they're on our capital facilities plan.
Thank you, Blair. Thank you. That's exactly what I was going to say.
And so, I mean, and I don't want to, I mean, I guess I'll back up, and sorry, Quinn, if I interrupted you there, but I think this puts us at a little bit of a disadvantage. We went from a week ago of we're doing nothing, tonight we're trying to make a decision to spend 150,000+ being blindsided by it. I think the employees, I mean, it comes across harsh, but I mean, most of my employees were happy to have a job. They weren't working from home. We were working in the hospitals. We were working everywhere, and they were just happy to be working. So I mean, and I'm not saying this isn't what we're going to do, and some recognition, but I think it's just that's the easy thing to pick real quick, because it was bam, let's do it. It's easy. We can do up to $13. My personal opinion is we still may go down this road, but I think this needs to be a bigger discussion for the whole group. I mean, we haven't had any discussion on whether we're going to do this until tonight, and then we wanted it as an action item. We already talked about not just throwing these things down as action items, having discussions either as committees or as the whole council or whatever. And before we're spending this, I mean, that may not seem like a lot, but to our little city, it's a ton. I mean, that percentage of, I mean, that's more money than we get off of property tax in a year. And we're just going to start spending it. Boom, here we go. I don't agree with just doing it right now. I'm not saying that the staff isn't going to receive something or we're not going to use it, because we may have to, but don't we have 3 years plus to spend this money?
Yep.
That's
Yes.
what, yeah. So, and some of our capital facilities and our infrastructure and all those things are going to become deficient in that 3-year period of time. We need the municipal utilities, we need the finance committee all the way in on how this can be spent and done. And so I struggle. There's ways to, I mean, we've read through it. Some of the other salaries can be paid. And so, and then the money can be moved back to the general fund. The general fund money then can be reallocated somewhere else. There's a lot of different things to do besides just hitting the first thing to do. And so I didn't want to go too far down that discussion, and say, yes, let's start picking one of these, because I'm not willing to even go down that road
Yeah.
tonight.
I feel the same.
Hey, Quinn, can I jump in on,
Yep.
on piggyback on Blair? Thanks, Blair. Just to echo, you made the statement that you don't see there's any deficiencies. I'm looking at the sewer capital facilities plan that was done in 2017. We've got a almost $700,000 deficiency in the trunk line on Old Fort Road. We got $1 million deficiency on the trunk line in Canyon Drive. We got a $242,000 deficiency in replacing the trunk line 1900 East. And that's just 3 of the top 5. I could pull up the water one and come up with the exact same thing. If those are 2 of those allowable costs, I think we need to consider those along with all the others that are being recommended. Look at the total priorities and then come back with a recommendation. So I support what Blair was saying, but I disagree with your statement earlier.
Okay, thank you. Quinn, did you have other?
No, I was going down the same path. I just thought there were other things. I don't know all the details of what can and can't be used. I know they kind of tie our hands in some areas saying you can only use it for these things, but I would like to, as has already been said, verify whether or not some of these other projects that we have would qualify, because I believe the same thing, they probably could qualify. So I again would recommend this be a discussion item rather than something we take action on tonight.
I just have a couple of questions. So that was my first thought too, is our capital facilities plan when we talk about deficiency. So if you sat down and reviewed those, were they found to not be applicable, or why were those not considered?
Well, when I looked at it and I went through, it says they have to be acceptable. You have to take the drinking water guidelines of what you can do for grants on that. And if you're eligible for the grant money through that program, then you can use the ARPA money for that. And my reading of what those eligible how they defined the eligible deficiencies, maybe we could use it. The thing is we also have already, with our capital facilities plan, put in place the funding to meet those deficiencies. What if we use the money for this? Yes, it would mean those deficiencies would possibly be done earlier. We could move up the schedule, and that is a correct statement, Wayne. Well, what I was looking at is we have those in place. We've identified a funding source for those. And so the one funding source that we are eligible, or the one project we are eligible for that we currently do not have a funding source for, is a public works facility. I was specifically asked, can we use the money for the public works facility in a previous meeting? And so I had said, at that time, I said, no, I don't think we can. We have found that we can use it. That is an option, but it's under the guidelines of infrastructure and water sewer. Yes, there are probably other projects that it could be.
Thank you.
Okay.
Another question I had was, initially I thought this was also going to be elaborated to high-speed internet options. Was that what was finally passed in the bill, in the law that passed?
Yes, I failed to state that as one of the
Okay.
options.
So I agree with what's been stated. I would like to see all of the options we have. I think it would be really beneficial to utilize Jamie on this and interpreting the law and make sure that we're reviewing it and understanding it correctly so that we can use this to the best of our benefit. I agree with the public comments where, our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren will be paying for this. So we want to make sure that we're leaving them with something that they can benefit from, and make sure that we're looking at all of our options. And I think that would mean probably some committee meetings to talk about. I think it's going to be a long haul decision, but I would appreciate any updates or any thoughts along the way so we can be informed as we move forward. So I would also agree with tabling this. I think that we just need more information.
All right, any other comments?
Yeah, I just had a couple. As far as this amount goes for the employees, we have an hourly rate and a percentage. And I hope this doesn't sound completely ignorant, and excuse me if it does, but do they require us to pay taxes on this amount? Is this straight just to the employee, or if we were giving them premium pay, is the city then also paying taxes? And does this apply to every employee, whether they're currently employed with the city or not?
The answer is yes to the taxes, and that was factored into the amount here. And we were not going to go backwards to employees that are no longer with us. So they would have to still be employed with us.
Okay, thank you. I kind of agree with everybody else here. I hate to just jump the gun and say, let's just pay this and then see what else comes our way. I was really hoping as part of our discussion, we would have a whole list of items for us to consider. Because right now we're hearing, well, water can do it, sewer, but we're not getting a whole list that we can actually research. So I feel like we need to be better informed before we commit the money. And I hope the staff understands that that's not any type of negative toward them. Yeah, this is just, we have to make sure, like Blair said, this is a huge amount for our city, and we have to be aware of how we're spending every dollar. So I feel like we should bring this back to committees and get an actual list of what we can consider.
And I want to reiterate that we do appreciate staff, and there's other ways to make staff know that we appreciate what they've done through this whole process. And you especially have been amenable to allowing staff to be at home and try to ease any issues with being here through the pandemic. So there's other ways to do that, and we may come back to this for some portion of it or whatnot. But so I just wanted to clarify that.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, then, do I have a motion to approve, table, or deny Resolution 21-42?
Mayor, I'll make a
No.
motion to table.
Sorry, no, this is ARPA pay, not that. Okay. Okay. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second. Can you repeat the motion? I didn't catch it.
I just don't know.
The motion is
To
to table.
Table, thank you.
Table,
Sorry.
yeah.
Do we need to put a time frame on this? If we're going to table it?
We may.
I would prefer that you continue rather than table. There's a difference
Yeah.
legally between tabling an item and continuing an item. To continue the item means that we can bring it back either at a date that you state right now, or just indefinitely. You could continue that till we have done additional research and brought back more information about all the options available. Tabling is a specific action where the council is shelving it and then has to take specific action to unshelf it. And so continuing is easier functionally and administratively for the council to not have to remember to take that action to pull it back off the table. So
I'll modify that motion. Mayor, I make the motion to continue the ARPA's Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund Employees Premium Pay.
And who seconded that?
I'll still second it.
Okay. All right. Any further comments? We'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. All right. And so I guess,
we'll do more research and bring back those options.
great. Thank you.
Are we gonna can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are we doing that with just staff, or are we going to try to do it as a committee?
Well, I heard that we'd like to use committees to,
I would
Look at
recommend that.
yeah.
I would love to have the committees bring back a prioritization of projects that would be eligible.
Can I clarify? So is each committee that would be available for uses going to see compatible uses and then make the priority list? And then,
It has to almost be a group that's gonna sit down and dig into what you can, and I know Mac's already done all that and done a lot of that, but every time we need to decide if something's in there, we're turning and looking at Mac, and it's all on Mac's shoulders. Well, it's a big document. I've looked through it. It's gonna take more than one set of eyes to figure out how you can do it, whether that be with Jamie and Brandon and everybody else trying to figure it out. I would recommend you put a ad hoc group together
All right.
at the mayor's discretion.
Do I have, right? Okay. Do I have volunteers that would like to be on this committee?
I'll volunteer, Mayor.
Okay, we got Angie.
Well, I spoke up the most, I better volunteer.
Okay, Councilman Halverson and Councilwoman Petty.
May I
Then-
just ask a question
Yeah.
again to clarify? Would it be better if staff went and really evaluated this and then brought back all what the findings were to the entire council and then divvy it out to the individual committees versus doing an ad hoc committee now?
How does staff feel that would be the most efficient way of doing this?
We're happy to proceed however the council would like us to.
Can you canvass all the other cities and see what they're already doing?
Yes, absolutely.
Find out what they have decided is acceptable while you're looking at what we think is acceptable.
Absolutely.
I guess if I could be really frank with you, Dave, what would be more streamlined for you? Would it be to be able to work with your staff and Jamie and really figure out all the details of this and bring it to council, or to have a committee that is meeting to go over it all?
I think that for many items, it's great to have council participation up front in a committee setting. In this type of a setting, I think it's mostly just research. And so I would lean towards staff can handle it and we can bring it back as a discussion item for the whole council, and then you all see that at the same time. But again, it's just two different ways to skin the cat, and I'm happy if the council has members that want to be involved in that. We can present to the committee first and get council input and refine the recommendation essentially. It's one is bringing forward information to the full council to digest. The other is trying to bring forward a recommendation.
I feel like it would be beneficial, just my personal 2 cents, to have it brought forward to the entire council, as members of the public are also privy to that same information and able to also understand it. And then perhaps a committee at that point in time would be more beneficial than at this point in time, is my thought.
I echo those thoughts, Taylor.
Okay, is the council good with directing staff to find more information, bring it back to the council, and then possibly creating a committee then?
Fine.
Yep, that's fine.
All
Okay, we'll
right.
proceed that way.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Our next item is fire auxiliary building layout, and I'm going to turn the time over to Chief Tolman. Is Chief Tolman here? Oh, there he is back there.
Hi, we'll run through this PowerPoint. I know there's lots of questions that may not be covered in this PowerPoint, so even though we're starting with the question slide, that will actually be at the end. So I kind of wanted to start with some background as to some of the dominoes that have already fallen in this process that kind of got us to where we are today. So we'll go through those. Maybe. There we go. So kind of the linchpin in a lot of this is the civic building. In 2017, we asked for the civic building to be turned over to the fire department. At the time, the civic building was generating for the city about $200 a year in rental fees. And at the time, we were also storing all of our turnout gear, which is full of carcinogens, in living quarters, actually in the bedrooms. So we were having firefighters in bedrooms with gear that's full of smoke and other stuff, which, as you can see, violates NFPA 1851, which states gear cannot be stored in living quarters. So that was pretty straightforward. That's why at the time we felt like we had to make a decision that was right for the firefighters, and the easy, cheap solution at the time was to utilize the civic building, because again, it was probably costing the city more money at that point than they were earning in rentals, and so we repurposed the civic building at that point. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. So after we acquired the civic building and moved all of our stuff in there, we started to look at some of the needs for the civic building. So about 3 years ago, we started looking on what it would cost to re-roof the civic building, what it would cost to replace these doors and windows that are rotted out. I know in these pictures it's hard to tell, but that door, if you went and pushed it, it would probably fall right in. And once all these costs started adding up, we realized, is it better to pour a bunch of money into this building, or is it better to look at a separate building? And that also, even though this is kind of a side issue, it's related, and we'll go through that. Rear access has been part of the plan from the time of construction for the fire station. The fire station has 3 bays at the rear of the fire station that go basically to nowhere. They go to the back of the fire station. There's no way other than driving through the park to access those back bays, or by pulling the vehicles in front out. Multiple park general plans have shown rear access to the fire station. None of them have included the option that we're going to discuss as far as running a driveway along the north side of the building. All of the other plans had it running out over onto Lester Drive or running out onto South Weaver Drive. So by shortening the distance of how much concrete we need to lay, it actually is cheaper to pour along that north side than to try to run it to South Weaver Drive. That would require purchasing property. Running it out to Lester Drive would require a whole bunch of concrete too, and taking up portions of the park. The Civic building would need to be removed. Where the Civic building currently sits, in order to run a drive aisle down the north side, there's just not room to get vehicles between the Dickamores fence and the Civic building. And for our wildland response, for our type 6 rush vehicle, we have to drive through the park to even get that out for responses. Our water tender, we have to move vehicles around to even get that out for a wildland response. And here's some pictures, too fast. So here's where that north aisle would go. As you can see, we can't get vehicles past the Civic building right there. And then this is a picture of our type 6 brush truck and how we literally just drive out the back and drive through the park. Not ideal to do that, obviously, when football or soccer or baseball is going on, but in order to have the quickest response possible, that's the option we decided works best for now. And I think this is not working. Will you go to the next one, please, Lisa? Stand by. Oh, there we go. All right, here's some more pictures. So if we switch the Humvee around, we'd have to move 2 other vehicles out of the way to get it out the front. And then the water tender, which you can see in the back of that right picture, we have to pull our engine out onto the front apron, pull the water tender out, and then because our engine carries controlled substances, we can't just leave it on the front pad. We have to then take the time to back it back in and then respond on the call. Next, please. So this kind of brings us to the outbuilding and the big discussion of where in the park to bring it. Where we're going to put it, or if we're going to put it in the park, is obviously for the council to decide, but here's kind of outlining some more of the needs. We need that bit. We need somewhere to store the gear. That's pretty well established. That's a national standard and state law. We already showed you some of the pictures of the poor condition of the Civic building and how expensive it would be to bring that up to a reasonable standard. We showed you the need for the rear access and the reserve vehicle storage. The reason we can't park these vehicles outside is if we park one of these fire apparatus outside during the winter time, it would ruin the pump, and we would be spending far more money repairing or replacing pumps. And really, it'd be replacing. You can't really repair when you've cracked a pump. And so it starts getting really expensive when you park fire apparatus outside during the winter, and that's part of the need and planning for that future growth. So, questions? I know I didn't go over the outline. I think you all have seen the outlines as far as where we can place this building. So I didn't include those as part of the slide because those were part of the packet. And I know it's not an easy decision to make, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Which is your preferred option of these that have been presented to us for a building?
I think the best option is the one that leaves the Bowery in place, but gets rid of the stage from a practical standpoint. If we wanted to leave the stage and the Bowery in place, we could bump it closer to the ball diamond and then put up a fence so people aren't running into the side of the building. Those would probably be the two best options from a cost standpoint and a logistics standpoint. We did try to look at other places to put it, and it either wouldn't fit or it would require purchasing property from neighbors. And I think it was more or less decided that that's probably going to be a lot more expensive than tearing down and or relocating the stage. So we did try to find the cheapest avenue as far as where we can put this without interfering too much with other activities.
So option one, do you know if that's the one you were
Correct.
wanting? Can we get those back up on the screen if that's okay? Thanks.
Can I
Yeah.
add that this was budgeted for, this project was budgeted for, and staff started down the road to make that happen. And the reason this is coming forward as far as layout options is because originally the plan was to not go outside the current footprint of fire property. Essentially, it's all city property, but where there's fence and where there's already designated as fire space, the intent was to keep all of this on that property. And as we got into the details of the project, that just wasn't an option. There wasn't enough space there with turn radiuses and various needs like that. And so because it becomes a larger conversation and we understand that it could impact the park perhaps, that's why we wanted to bring that forward to the full council and have the conversation and provide additional direction on the scoping of that project that way. Because the goal was to not impact the park at all.
So Chief, I'm sorry, Angie, were you done?
I just had one other thought.
Go
I
ahead.
appreciate you explaining it this way because our previous conversations were that you needed a shed. This is not a shed. This is a garage that you're asking for, correct? Vehicle storage and whatnot, right?
Yeah, and forgive me if I ever tried to sell it as a shed. That was never my intention to make it sound like it was a tough shed or something like that.
Okay,
It
so
was-
I appreciate this because this is clearly, it identifies the needs that you have. Quinn, go ahead and then I'll come back to what I was going to say.
So I haven't paid a lot of attention to other fire stations, but the ones I remember seeing don't have a drive around back access. How do they handle it? Like the one on Washington down at about whatever it is before you get to Ogden High, and the one up by the Walmart in Layton.
So any fire station that's been built without rear access is not meeting current standards, first and foremost. So I work full-time for the second biggest fire department in the state. And the only station we have without rear access was built in the 1960s. And so as far as current fire stations that don't have rear access and require personnel to back in, I would argue that that's the exception and not the norm.
Okay, so it's going to be a regulation or requirement at some point.
Well, I believe even when our station was built, it was required at the time, which is why the bays were put on the rear with the plans that as soon as the city could afford to, we would provide that rear access. It just never happened. So you're right. There are departments that have stations where backing in is required. And again, they're either old or they were granted an exception due to them being landlocked based on the lot size and the need of the building.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry. I'm really frustrated about this. I want the fire department to be safe. I have been a huge advocate for you guys. Anything you've ever asked, I've said yes. Even when you wanted one power gurney, I said, let's give you two. So know that I'm really in favor of the fire department. That being said, I'm super in favor of the parks. So taking out any amenities from the parks, knowing what our budget is really hard for me to swallow. Any amenity. And I know this stage may seem like it's only used by the city in country fair days. It's just used more than that. That's not documented. Preschool graduations, there's church activities, there's a whole bunch of other things that people come and utilize the stage. So it may seem like a simple thing and it's kind of old. We don't have any money to replace it. We don't have anything that we could use as a substitute for that.
Right.
So I hesitate taking anything out of the park.
I don't take any of this personally. You know, my responsibilities are to present needs and options. And so I didn't go into this with the thought process of let's get rid of the stage. If we can find a way to keep the stage, I think I'm open to all solutions that make everybody feel like they're being heard and listened to.
So, okay, I appreciate that. If I went to the park today to review this again, there's a few really large trees by the Bowery and the stage. Would those remain or would those be taken out?
Any trees that are between the stage and the Bowery and within that vicinity would likely be removed.
So all the shade right there. The
Again,
Bowery and the trees are all the shade that we have right there. So again, we're taking another amenity away if we're taking the shade away. Because anyone who goes to the park to watch their kids, they're not sitting in the sun. I mean, Haley might, but I don't.
It's true.
Again, I'm just here presenting a need. I don't, as far as, you know,
So
I'm not going to argue that, well, we need to burn those down and we need to get rid of them. You know?
no, I know. I'm just
Okay.
telling you where I'm coming from.
Okay, I thought
So
you were
we
asking
have,
me a question. I was
no,
like, I
no,
don't know
we
what you're
just don't
asking
have
me.
the budget to
Okay.
replace any amenity in the park that's removed. Period.
Alright.
We don't. We have nothing to do that with. So I would rather come up with a solution that doesn't remove the stage or the Bowery. What
Okay.
does anybody else say?
Can I just ask a quick, but I'll let Wayne go right as this is quick. So as we're sitting here thinking about this from the budget standpoint, none of these correctly, the way Brandon's put this together, this is all the extra work, not counting the building, correct? So
Yes,
we
correct.
currently have a budget of X, and I can't remember what that is,
125
for the building. Then this is on top of that. How much was budgeted on top of that?
So 125 was the
That was the
initial
total
budget
budget,
for
correct?
the concrete access and the building. We have a quote for the building, right?
And
It's
the
got
demo.
into-
And the demo.
And the demo is going to be done with the fire department. Yes, it was all part of that 125 budget. So removal of the building, replacement of landscaping in that area, the access road, concrete on the north side, and the new storage building. All of that was within the 125. Again, as we got into the details, I think we probably have to question that budget amount as well with prices as they've changed. And in other projects, we're getting quotes and bids that are good for 7 days. And that quote and bid is a little bit old in that regard. So it may turn into a phasing conversation, but if you think phasing of this project, you have to have a building first before you can move the storage that's in the current building before you could ever build the access. And so the building location became the first point of decision.
Thank you.
Love to jump in. Thanks for asking that question, Blair. That was one of my questions in regards to the cost numbers that were put forward. Some of your statements you just made, Dave, I'm going to begin with the end first. I think that we need to go back and look at a few other options than what's being presented here. Again, I wasn't part of the Parks Committee that got to review this, and I wasn't part of the Safety Committee. I'm the 5th council member who's catching it fresh tonight with this packet, with all this information. But I can come up with several options. I know you're not going to like them because they weren't what you put forward, but is there any reason why you can't use the existing road on the west end of the park that goes to the rec building, improve that road, come in on the backside, you still have access. You don't have to get rid of stage. You don't have to get rid of the Bowery. The footprint you put in here for the building could go in the exact same spot as the Civic building and still make it work. Yes, you have to relocate the equipment to a temporary facility. Maybe the rec building can put it in there temporarily while you build your new building. But I think you can come up with options to get your rear exit, your rear entrance into your building. So you can have your drive-through. You have your other building for your extra vehicles on the same lot, and you don't have to take any more of the park. It would crowd the ball field. It would crowd the back of those soccer complexes, but those could be relocated or shifted over in aspects. But I'm not here making a decision tonight. I just think there are other options that I think we need to go back to the drawing board and bring this forward, unless there's some time commitment that you need a decision. This is too much information for me to have to make a decision tonight on. I need more information.
There were a whole lot more than 3 options that were looked at. There were 5 options that were put down on paper. That was one of the options that didn't make the cut simply for the cost of concrete. If you look even at option 1, the overview in the packet, the amount of concrete to get from the building just to the outbuilding.
And I'll challenge that statement. Why do we have to have concrete? You can make asphalt, thick enough asphalt, and you can make thick enough sub-base to have the same strength as 6-inch, 8-inch concrete. I look at a lot of the fire stations around Layton. I looked at several of them in Ogden. When I looked this up, they don't have concrete all the way around their fire stations. They have it on the front apron, but they don't have it all the way around. You can make road surfaces strong enough to handle your equipment. It doesn't have to be concrete, 6-inch, 10 inches thick. So I challenge that statement that it might be more costly, but how much is it going to cost the community to lose that stage that is an icon of this community? To some people, that's priceless. To some people, it's a piece of junk. It could be utilized. It could be put further into the parks program. Did you consider, or has anyone considered the actual master planning of this park that was recently updated and incorporate any of these changes with what's planned or envisioned for that park in the future? That needs to be taken into consideration. Again, I didn't have that information as part of this packet. So I'm going down the road as to what are the other options to consider. And I don't think it's as black and white as being presented tonight. I think there's some other things we can consider.
I have just a few questions. So just to bring up some questions that came in public comment, the question about storing equipment that you don't need to have right there at the station at the Public Works building, would that at all be a possibility, or would it all need to be there at the station?
The current Public Works building or the
No,
upcoming Public
the
Works
upcoming
building?
one.
I guess that'd be more of a question for Mark Larson, but as far as reserve vehicles, I don't see why that wouldn't be an option.
Okay. Just possibly not at all applicable, but I heard twice national standards are not being met. And we just got done talking about that our ARPA money is for national standards not being met. I know that it's for water and sewer, but our civic building and national standards on something else. Oh, not having our back end for our fire department. So just something to maybe look into with those ARPA monies. So when you brought this forward to the Public Works Committee, one of the options was to look into the property. Did staff have that opportunity? Sorry, Public Safety Committee. What did I say? Oh, sorry.
So there were 2 options that included the purchase of property on the north side of the building. And ultimately that was cost prohibitive, and the
Did we get
decision,
bids on that, or what, how did we come to the conclusion it was cost prohibitive?
because the purchase of the property it was just an addition to the project costs. It didn't actually decrease any other project costs. And so because of that, in an attempt to bring forward project options that were within budget, so to speak, or were the cheapest options essentially.
Well, I guess I'm confused because those bids did include demolition and tree removal. So if we didn't do those things because we had the property available to us, could that not have been a wash or close to it?
We're happy to look at all of those. I'm simply stating the process was we looked at a lot of options and narrowed it down at certain checkpoints, and cost was one of them that got those options off the table. But if you'd like us to bring those back on the table and bring forward more information and additional cost estimates for all of those, it was just additional work that we would have to have done to provide more detailed cost estimates. And so in an attempt to not have Brandon Jones put more time into cost estimates for options we didn't feel were as likely, we cut those off they're in the cutting room floor essentially.
Okay. So I spoke with you earlier, Chief. So this building that you're looking at is 30 by 50. Let's just tentatively say that some of these reserve vehicles could be stored at a place that would be covered. What is the most conservative space that you guys would need if you did not have to have vehicles in there?
Just for the PPE and turnouts, is that your question? I don't see why we couldn't have a building. I think initially we got quotes for all different sizes of buildings, and 30 by 20, I believe, would be appropriate. It's kind of Cole's realm. If Cole wants to touch on that, he's our PPE turnout guy. Do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, 30 by 20 is probably going to be the smallest we can do. I think, if I can make a clarification, part of the issue is that we don't have enough space, even if we remove our second out apparatus, right? So we have a reserve engine and a reserve ambulance. Those are the only two things that we have that are reserved that could go out of that frontline status. That still does not give us enough room with the additional paramedic stuff that we're getting, the additional brush trucks that we have on purchase and on order. That doesn't give us enough room to park even the frontline equipment, let alone the second out equipment, if that makes sense. So I think that's part of the issue is that it's not just second out stuff that we're trying to house in that. There's going to be some frontline apparatus out in that other building as well. So I think that's probably a good clarification that everyone needs to understand, that there's only 2 reserve apparatus that we have right now.
Okay, thank you. That is helpful. So 30 by 20 is the most conservative you feel that we could go, and even then that would be a little tight.
So the 30 by 20 doesn't fit our apparatus. That's the problem. When we originally got the bid, it was because we were looking at apparatus and seeing how close we could get it. But our engines right now are 33 feet. So that doesn't fit in a 30 by 20.
Okay, thank you. So I understand the predicament that you're in, and I feel like anytime the fire department comes to you, you want to make sure that you give your fire department, you want to take care of your fire department. They're a big priority, and so I echo what Angie was relaying, that we want to make sure that you guys are able to offer us the greatest thing possible. I totally understand the dilemma that you're in, having only one exit out of your fire station. You have a vehicle that breaks down, you can't move, or a bay door that won't open. Obviously, time is of the essence for you guys. But I also feel the same about these layouts. The trees being gone, the stage, the pavilion. These are, yeah, they're iconic to our city. You take these out and that park really has nothing left. And we already have parks that are suffering. But I know they're old and I know they're not pretty, but they're ours and they are enjoyed. If we had the ability to replace these, if we had some sort of plan to rebuild them, this would be much easier to swallow. But I know the second those go down, the likelihood of them coming back up is next to none, unless we have what, some citizens recorded of raising the funds ourselves to do it, which is obviously a possibility. But I feel like I want to make this work. I just don't like these options. So I think we have a really fantastic engineer, and I would say go back to the drawing table. Let's make sure we're looking at all of our different things. As a matter of cost, obviously we want to be fiscally responsible in this. But if it's a matter of an extra 30 grand to purchase land or to pave more pavement and we get to keep these park amenities, that's something I think the council can swallow down versus taking these amenities away that we will not be able to replace. So
I hope that clarifies kind of how I feel. I don't want it to necessarily say, no, we're not going to deal with this and we're not going to allow this option to happen. I want to look into further options. I just don't like these options.
So Councilwoman Alberts, if I
Mhm.
may just add to something, the Bowery to be replaced in Central Park is one of the highest on our priorities. It was about 70,000 was the estimate to replace that. So
And that was before.
yeah, that was before.
construction
That was
costs.
before everything went really expensive. So, so we do want to replace it, but like Haley mentioned, we don't have a plan to do that right now. I would like to ask the council though about option 2. It allows us to construct directly west of the stage. And the stage and the Bowery are maintained where they're at.
So I have some thoughts on that. I went over to the park and kind of looked at that one because it's one
Can I,
that.
hang on
Oh,
a second.
sorry.
Lisa, can you put option 2 up for us, please? It'll be a lot easier. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Haley, sorry.
It's page
Yeah,
255
you-
of the packet.
You lose your sight line of the stage. So just thinking, we just did movie in the park, thinking of that specifically, it would be really difficult for that to actually continue in a way that would allow for enough room. Just because that building does jut out an extra probably 30 feet, I would say, from that stage. And it just really blocks that line of sight. I would like to say the master plan for Central Park does have a little bit different layout. That was approved like 10 years ago, but I think they had in mind back then to allow for this rear access for the fire department. They laid it out a little bit differently, but they had moved these things. So something to look into.
What page is it?
She's trying.
255. 255 on
So-
the packet.
Gosh, I'm trying. I would share it with all of you. So Haley, if it simply because of the line of sight for movie in the park type situations would be the only reason you would say no to this option? Is that, or are there more concerns?
Not just moving the park. I think just in general, if you're going to have a stage, my thought is people are looking at the stage, and when you have that building blocking it, because that stage is not very big, you're very narrow. I mean, you really wouldn't be able to have anybody. The amount of people that would actually be able to see that stage would be very minimal because it's very narrow. I mean, if you think about that stage, I think we measured, what was it, 14 feet wide, and we have this building come out from the side about 30 feet. So it really limits your scope to see.
Chief, for clarification, the rear bay doors, do they go, they're almost right to the back of the stage, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
I think one of the concepts we talked about when we looked at this, Chief, was why can't we put the building in front where the current community center
So
is?
we cannot meet city code as far as setbacks and fit the building right there. We've measured it. That's why that spot was ruled out in front of the station.
How far off are we?
At 10 feet.
You can see the setback line essentially with where the current civic building is and the other two homes to the north. So it's pretty much right on the setback line. It can't be moved closer to the road.
We could, one option we could have, if we wanted to pursue that, is to bump the building right, literally make it basically part of the existing fire station. I don't know how much more expensive that would be, but that would give us the setback that we would need off 1375. It would just take a lot more engineering to figure out how to make that work with the slope of the roof. And then it would also eliminate our rear access on the north side. So we'd have to pursue rear access in another way if we
put the building right there. Does that help answer that?
Yeah, I'm just, is a 50 by 40 what you need, or can you elongate it and it's, 55 by 35?
Cole's done a lot of the measuring and
I'm
work
just
on
trying
this.
to see if something can fit up front that doesn't impact all the other things and still allows you the back access.
Right. So as we did this, right, I tried to get it to fit in the front portion, right? Obviously, from a citizen standpoint, myself, I want to save as much money as possible, right? Since we all pay for it as a citizen. And so I tried to get it to the front as much as possible. The issue is with when we build this building, the footings foundation, we're really cutting in, like I said, our apparatus.
Cole, is that mic on?
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Sorry. So the apparatus is 33 feet. So even if I do 35 feet with footings and foundation and wall, that doesn't give us enough to shut the bay. We can't get around those apparatus. So it's essentially landlocked where it's at until we
It's
can.
got to be at
open it.
least 40.
It's got to be a 40.
Thank you.
There's nothing else we can do to make that any different width-wise. It has to be that 40 feet to meet our needs and to be a feasible building, honestly. If we don't do the 40 and we shrink that in, I think we're going to lose the intent. We're going to put a bunch of money into a building that's not going to be usable. And I don't want to go down that road. And to Councilmember Windsor, we've looked out the back as an option. We studied that heavily. I studied that heavily, talked to people in the industry that do that. It's going to cost a substantial amount of money to improve what's already there down that road. And so, like I said, if we want to go down that road, that's why we took it off the table.
Let me modify that. What about if we just take that building and I'm looking at option 2 and put it where the ball field is? I know the ball players are going to hate me for saying that, but could you use the ball field area and preserve the stage? You still have your road works around. You still have access either way. The people who play ball field, the old timers might hate me for saying that, which I'm one of them, but I don't play. But you still got Canyon Meadows ball fields. I mean, Curtis may not like that, but there are those fields. We are trying to work to improve Cherry Farms. I don't know what the master plan is for this park to know if that ball field is essential to the park and if it could be relocated or not, but
In
was
20,
that thrown off the table as well?
I can answer that for you. In 2015, they were moving that ballpark. It's not there. There's 3 soccer fields.
The cost for a ball diamond was just bid out at $330,000.
How often is that ball field used? I mean, I don't know the statistics, but like the value to the city of having additional parking for our vehicles versus the value of the park. Does that work better, Paul? Okay. I hate to design it right now in the council meeting. I'm just like, I'm catching this all fresh. I didn't have all this conversation of what you did throw out and didn't throw out. To me, I'm just thinking, can we go back to consider some of these other options and are they more viable?
The preferred option was actually to put it right there where basically the stadium stands are for the baseball diamond, but it would cut into the baseball diamond. We'd have to get rid of the baseball diamond to fit the size of the building that we would need. Again, honestly, I would have suspected, and obviously I was dead wrong, that more people would have more grief about a ball diamond than the stage. But like I said, we're open to pursuing any option that the council would prefer us to look at. And again, to Cole's point, we did look at running it over to the west fence and down. We've looked at all that prior, and all these conversations over the last 3 years have kind of brought us to here, but we're happy to revisit that if the council wants us to try to come up with more solutions.
Thank you.
I think that's why we see there's so many different opinions. Because there's a lot of years where they've rented a stage because the stage isn't very big. All the years my daughter danced, there was a rented stage there because this stage wasn't even adequate enough. And I think that was one of the conversations we all had is what's the least used and the easiest to be replaced, because we've had to rent a stage several times. I don't know who's paid for that, if that's been Country Fair Days, if that's been the dance programs or what, but that stage isn't big enough to handle most of what usually goes on there. This year, I actually was surprised to see that we didn't have a rented stage there.
Yeah, and growing up here, this was the only year I can remember where we didn't rent a stage and put it in front of
And
that
put it in
stage.
front of that stage. We didn't even use the stage. And so that's why I think, I mean, everybody was pushing back towards going to option one. And that is where I would lean, to be honest, versus taking out, if we're not, you know, I don't see us spending any money like 300,000 to go replace a ball diamond or something in the near future. Where I'm assuming a stage or a rental stage or something for country fair days for the week is much cheaper. But I was surprised that this was an action item tonight. I thought we were discussed in public safety. This was a discussion item this week, very specifically. So again, we make a motion to move this somewhere else.
Move to continue.
I wasn't gonna throw the table or continue that. So, but it is a needed thing. So I don't think it's not gonna happen. It needs to be, I mean, yeah.
I know it feels like staff is bringing you a problem and saying, solve it, right? And I hope that that's not the case, that we're all working through the options together. And I appreciate the brainstorming or the spitballing or the, have you looked at this? Have you looked at that? Because we're all trying to solve the problem in a good way. I personally, being, you know, a newcomer, not as new as Trevor, but still a newcomer, I was surprised to hear that the stage is only about 20 years old. I thought that it was much older than that, but Mark Larson said that he was the one who poured it when he was working here. And so if there's history there that I don't know about, I think that's important, but that was a surprise to me. I thought that it was older than it is.
Mayor, can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Your 50 by 40 building, is that set up so that your vehicles would come out the longest side?
Correct. Yeah. So it would come out the longest side. The way that we laid it out, 3 bay doors with minimal spacing in between so that we can get a walkway down those so they pull straight out onto the long ways. We tried to configure it the long ways in option 2, running it down where the trees were along the back there, along that fence line, but then would be in the same problem that we're in now, would be stacking apparatus in the middle with no exit path out. So we'd be essentially doing exactly what we're doing now. And so it doesn't seem feasible to turn it any other way than having them drive out from the widthways.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other comments?
I can't resist. Would that mean they'd be backed in to that building?
100%, they would be backed in.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you're correct, right? As a second out apparatus backing it in, I would love for a pull through. So if you can give me 6 bay doors of 40 by 50 that pulls all the way through, I'd be happy to have that. So if that's the recommendation from the council, we'd love to take it.
And it was actually looked at, I believe, in putting it on, and that's what helped take up the Bowery.
Right,
That was
the
one of
one
the
option
options.
does show that.
Can I ask a question? Curtis will probably kill me, but the rec building, is that a permanent fixture? Because this building would fit there and then some. And it would allow us, if this storage facility doesn't have to go directly behind the fire station, correct me if I'm wrong, the fire station would then have the room to turn around and use that rear access where the civic building would be demoed.
So I can't speak to Curtis's plan with the building, and I'm not going to try. But I will talk about the access over there where the rec center is. One of the issues we have is, once again, there's going to be frontline apparatus out there for wildland response. So then we're going to be sending guys running across the park to run out there. So in whatever condition that may be. So access there plays a part of that. We also have checks and other things that we do on these apparatus daily, weekly. So that would put them over there without a paging system. Obviously, they'd have to be carrying radios. If something happened, then they'd have to be running back and forth. The other issue with that is if we do that and we plan on connecting a road between the station is now and the new building, that building would have to set back almost all the way to the fence, to the property line and over, so that we could get those apparatus out and make that turn to down that road. So we've looked at that as well.
So, but if you didn't, let's just pretend we have a magical place for this building.
I would
If you
love to.
didn't have the building right behind the fire station, can you make the turn that you need to, or does a turn back there not work either way?
Are
As
you
is.
talking to the north aisleway, the new aisleway to the north that we're trying to put in? We can make that turn.
Okay, so, okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, Councilman Halverson, I feel like you almost made a motion, but was that true?
Thought I did. You didn't hear my motion?
Oh,
No.
did you make one, Wayne? I'm sorry.
I moved that we continue it, but you,
Oh, I'm sorry. I
it didn't get
I-
recognized, so I guess a new motion needs to be made.
Yes, I guess we do.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to continue this discussion. Is there any further comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And I am happy to, as the public safety, to help review any of your options and make a recommendation back to the council if you would like. Haley,
Can I be, you just said aye, so am I,
to have the public safety.
let's do it.
Blair.
Just Blair.
Um,
I agree.
What are our time constraints with this? Is there time constraints? I know we've had the place for years and years, but I know we also are taking
Weather,
over paramedic duties, so.
but weather's an issue.
Yeah, the big issue as far as a building and bumping vehicles out is having somewhere to put these vehicles that hold water. You know, I can put the backup ambulance on the back pad. It's not recommended because if we have an issue with our frontline apparatus, it's out there not plugged in. So it's probably going to be dead.
Can I ask a quick question on that? This new building doesn't have any heat or anything in it.
It would have heat.
'Cause it was just a
That-
pole
that-
barn, so you get an insulated pole barn?
Yes.
When I read through that, I didn't see that. So you're,
Yeah,
okay.
the
I
goal
didn't
is
see-
to protect
I
these.
saw the gas service. I just didn't see anything else in there for the budget of the rest of the stuff, so.
Yeah, is just figuring out a way, and really, we're trying to extend value on some of these apparatus. And to extend that value on these apparatus, we have to have a way to store them. And what I mean by that is, the longer we can keep certain vehicles in a reserve status, means the longer we can put back buying a newer apparatus. And putting them outside is the quickest way we're gonna ruin them.
Oh, for sure.
And so we're trying to come up with a solution that's cost effective, both in the sense of, hey, let's build this as cheap as we can, but also a way that's not going to ruin current equipment. So it's that balancing act. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Not mine, because I still haven't
Oh.
seen the budget for heat in it, just so you know.
You what?
I just never have seen the budget. When we reviewed that building, I
Oh.
still haven't seen that it's a heated building.
Okay. Yeah, that was the plan.
I know, but I don't believe it's in our budget or your quotes,
It's the insulation for the building is in the quote,
but not the heaters.
The heater is not in the plan. Yeah, the pole barn company did not add
They
a
don't-
heater
they
to
won't-
that,
they
right?
won't do
So
that.
they did it as what they would do, and that's part of that extra funds that we have as part of the construction cost.
All right, thank you. So our next item is Canyon Meadows Park West Landscape Funding. Dave, would you like to take that?
Yeah, I'll kick this off, and I'm sure the committee has more to say than I do, but I provided for the council a document on the dais there for each of you. Ultimately, the council requested the Parks Committee to look at options for funding sod and sprinklers there at the Canyon Meadows Park West project within the next 2 years. And as the committee looked at it, they wanted to bring back a recommendation that uses funds that were already set aside, park impact fee funds. So that's on the left side of this. Cherry Farms project, PIF is park impact fees. In the current budget, we have $190,000 that was budgeted for the upgrade of Cherry Farms ball field. And we bid that out originally and only got one bid back, and it was astronomical. It was nowhere near the budget amount. So the Parks Committee made the decision or made the recommendation to wait on rebidding that out until it's a more advantageous time and hopefully get more bids and better bids. But in the meantime, that $190,000 of park impact fees essentially is sitting there waiting for the Cherry Farms project. So on one hand, it's kind of a priority conversation of, do we want to move the sod and sprinklers ahead in the priority list, ahead of that Cherry Farms project? And the committee is essentially recommending that. So if you look at the expenditure side of this document, again, that $190,000 is available. The thought was we could put $10,000 into the Cherry Farms field as it exists now, kind of an interim facelift, so to speak, that could get us a few years until we could rebudget for the larger project. And then we have $135,000 for the sod and sprinklers at Canyon Meadows Park. I know initially when we talked about this, the budgeted amount or the estimated amount was $250,000. So we were pretty happy to bring that down and get a little bit more refined, and that number is $135,000. And those are basically the two recommendations. Is definitely the committee feels like those two items should be considered for that $190,000. The rest of that $190,000, there are some options that that the Parks Committee wanted to bring forward, and that is put money toward the bike track amenity that essentially has been left zero there at this point. There is an update on that, and there is a group of people that the committee is connected with. Andy's been able to find some people that are willing to donate some time and materials to help maybe get that off the ground. And so that was a welcome thing, but we're still working through the details on that. Essentially, the council at this point, the city is putting $0 toward the bike park amenity, their bike track. So that's an option, to put some money toward the bike track and get that up and running sooner rather than waiting until that group either comes up with the funds themselves or we come up with funds in the future. Another option to the council is fencing, finishing fencing around this portion of the project. Essentially, the fencing ends on the south side near the corner. And for $15,000, we could extend that fencing all along the south side of the project, on the south side of where the basketball court is, and protect the neighbors from basketball use and just start to put up fencing around where there will be actually usage. Then there's an option for putting trees, essentially additional landscaping features in this portion of the park that was not originally budgeted for. It's an option to, if we want to put some trees in that could be in growing. That was an option that was thrown out. There's one additional piece of this that's not within that 190, and I put it on the bottom of the page. The Parks Committee did not talk through this piece of it, so this is new information tonight. And that is, so far with the project, we've received 3 change orders of minimal amount that has all been within the contingency amount of the budget. We are now reaching a point where change orders are not going to be within budget. And so one of the change orders that is being discussed, hasn't been approved obviously, is the potential to put a larger electrical panel in a more advantageous location for future needs of the park. The current bid for the electrical panel maintains a location and a size that was just for the pickleball and the one basketball court. So it meets the needs of what's out there today, but in the future, for additional electrical needs, there would have to be a relocation and an additional conduit and all types of things, a larger panel essentially to meet any future needs. So the option is to just put that in place now. It's a $21,000 for that electrical work. And the reason that could be included in the park impact fees from the 190 as an option, or one thing that we've come to find over the last few days, as Mac and I have dug into the park impact fees, looking at the budget, looking at not only the budget for the Canyon Meadows Park project, but all of our park impact fees. We do have additional park impact fees that we could allocate to that as well, and so have it not be part of the 190. Again, it's the same pot of money, park impact fees, whether it is currently allocated 190,000 to the Cherry Farms Park, or additional park impact fees that just haven't simply been allocated yet. That's an option as well. I hope that paints a general picture. As a friendly reminder, the overall park budget for Canyon Meadows Park to this point is all self-contained. This is additional money for the sod and sprinklers, and so that's the option that the committee looked at and is bringing forward to the council as a recommendation of how to pay for the sod and sprinklers. It doesn't mean that the sod would be put in this fall, obviously with water shutting off and the timing and whatnot, but it would happen probably next spring.
Was the contractor okay with that, the delay?
Yes.
They were made aware of that then?
Yes. Angie, Quinn, is there more that you want to explain about that?
Do you want to go, Quinn?
I'll let you.
Okay, okay, so I know that we had this allocated for Cherry Farms Park, and we talked with Curtis about this. How does this impact our rec department? What does this do for his program? He said, obviously, he would like the upgrades to Cherry Farms Park. It would allow him to have more age groups, to have the ball field oriented a different direction. But with the motion that was made for us to get the sod and sprinklers and everything in, we knew that we had to find a way to come up with the money. So as Dave said, the bid that came for Cherry Farms was astronomical. It just was not even in the ballpark of what we could do. So we talked about maybe utilizing this money. So we did briefly discuss doing xeriscaping. Is there any way we can change this design a little bit? But when you look at the park layout, there really is not a whole lot of sod there. And I know it's really expensive. I think it's a lot, but there's not a lot of sod there to change. I am willing to look at that again and change any type of landscaping. I am happy to do that and see what everyone, if that's something that the council wants us to do, is to revisit that and see how we could redesign that. I'm okay with that. Like Dave said, our bike track, when we originally presented this, we were going to have Public Works help us with that. Just get dirt where it needs to go. As we have researched and done some due diligence on this, there are different materials that would make us have a better product in the end. So if we are able to get different materials, we can actually have a really nice amenity there. So that is one of the reasons we're hoping to budget something toward the bike track out of that. I have other thoughts about this change order, but do you have anything else to say about?
The only comment I have on the proposal to move the electrical, I'd like to see that more in detail. I mean, as you mentioned, this is first time for us hearing this tonight, and I think we already talked about that it would be adequate where it was, and so I'm not necessarily pushing that one forward. The fencing, though, we have, kind of a collage of fence, no fence, a different type of fence, bushes, nothing all the way around. And so, at least finishing the fencing on the south side to make it consistent, and other places, I think that would be, appropriate to kind of finish off a fence in our park.
Yeah, I had a question on this change order. Since this is the first time we're seeing it, the electrical we have right now is to put lights on the pickleball courts, conduit to the basketball court, correct?
I am not off the top of my head, I don't want to say yes or no just because
Okay,
I don't
that's
wanna
what I
misspeak,
recall.
but-
That's what I recall. But my question is, we already have planned for other infrastructure there, restrooms, pavilions, future dates, all that stuff. So the control panel that we have right now in the bid will not support that. Is that what I need to understand? It won't support anything else?
So that's what I'm understanding as well. Brandon talked to me about this yesterday. And then he had something come up today, so he's out of commission. But I don't have the details, and I apologize for that. This is unfair to say, hey, quick, make a decision. And I'm not necessarily asking for that as much as letting you know that this is the case. The way that he described it was that what is bid and what is in the project is adequate for what we're doing right now. But for future needs, it would need to be a larger or upgraded panel, and it could be in a more advantageous location. And that part I'm not sure about, that statement about advantageous location, but he did say that the panel right now can handle what we've got. And when there's additional needs there would have to be additional electrical work to make sure that it worked for those future needs.
Thank you.
I know that doesn't give the details that you're looking for.
We need to remind our CMGC that the reason we hired them and to do this in phases is so they looked at things like this. They should have been planned for. We all knew that there were other things going there. It's like putting in a water line that's not going to handle the rest of the park.
Sure.
And that's pretty bad. Yeah, pretty basic from a contractor standpoint. So I would like that passed along, especially when they're coming back saying we want more money. I mean, that's something that's elementary for Hogan.
The way Brandon described it, and I don't know why the disconnect, pun intended, but Brandon described it as a very important piece. And I think for your exact statement there. Right.
All right, so what are we gonna do with this?
I mean, I'd make a couple of comments. I really appreciate, I mean, I wanted it. I think all of us wanted to make sure we got sod and sprinklers in there. I appreciate you finding a way to do it. I think this is, I mean, we're not going to be able to spend the 300 plus on the ball field anyway. The money's budgeted. I think it's a wise thing to move over until we can eventually fund the other project. Because I didn't want to leave a park with just dirt, and that's not fair to those neighbors. So I think we should move forward with the sod and sprinklers, and the cherry farms, whatever it was that we were doing in the interim. I had one question, and I wasn't aware until it was pointed out to me that the bike track wasn't going. Was it just that the Public Works was going to do it? Was why we had nothing budgeted for it?
Well, yeah, because everything was so expensive. So Public Works was going to just help us get the, let me back up a little. Our bike track, not that we have scope creep. It's not scope creep. We have perspective change, right? Where we realize that if we really want this to be nice, it needs to be done right. Something different. We can't just throw dirt hills out. So we've kind of evolved our perspective on this. We do have this group who's awesome, who are professional mountain bikers, people that actually fabricate bikes and bike parts, and they're huge advocates and enthusiasts. They know how to do it, so they're donating a lot of time and assets for this. We just feel like it's really unfair to the rest of, it's really unfair to not put any type of budget toward that when we could use some material that wouldn't kick up dust as much. We could use material that would help delineate the tracks and such to make it actually a really nice product. So that's where we're coming from.
I'm trying frantically to find the master plan for Canyon Meadows Park West so I can kind of see this layout.
I can't get my email to
And
work. I was gonna send it to Lisa so she could pull it up.
I have like a portion of this pulled up here, and I'm not even sure if it's really the one that we ended up passing or not. I guess there's been quite a few change orders. There's been a few things that got moved around.
That's not the right one, I can tell you that.
Okay. Can you clarify for us, you or Dave, whoever, where we're at budget-wise and what that does include at this point in time?
I'll let Dave, because I'm pretty
Yeah, I'm
sure
happy to
that-
do that. If you remember right, this was, I want to say, December of 2020. And we looked at the various alternates and the costs. And the decision at that point was to pick alternate 3, I want to say, which included the parking lot area, the pickleball courts, and the basketball court, along with the bike track as the kind of 4 major pieces to it.
And the parking lot, was it just compacted gravel, or were we going to pave it?
No, it was
paved.
asphalted.
Okay.
Yeah, it was finished.
So paved parking lot, 8 pickleball courts. Thank you, Quinn. That's so
Well,
helpful.
let me, not 8 pickleball courts at that point.
Okay.
It was $1 million budget at
Uh-huh.
that point. It was $1,020,000. And the way that was broken up as far as the revenue for the budget was $400,000 from park impact fees, $360,000 from the money available from CARES, and then it was $240,000 from capital projects to get to that $1 million. And that was the night where there was a decision made to, well, let's do alternate 3 and let's put some money from capital projects in it.
Okay. Mhm.
Then we were able to receive the $150,000 of donations, which pushed that up to essentially $1,150,000. It got the 4 additional pickleball courts. So now there's 8 pickleball courts. Then there was the conversation about using future park impact fees so that we could essentially cover the costs, right? Because costs had changed on us through all that time. And so that's when the conversation of the loan of $250,000 from capital projects materialized. And so there was the decision, I believe it was May 25th meeting when that was presented, and it was the night that we awarded the contract to Hogan, and we said, yes, we're going to give the loan from capital projects of $250,000. So that got the total project budget at that point to basically 1.4 million rounded. So tonight we're bringing back this new addition essentially for the sod and sprinklers, and the money to pay for it is still park impact fees, just park impact fees that had been allocated to a different project. Was that the budget
Yes.
rundown you were hoping for?
Yes. So when you mentioned sod, is this the layout that you're looking at? Okay.
Dave, do you have that? My email will not log in again.
I'm
Yeah,
just
it
trying to
was
better
the-
understand how
or the
much sod we're talking
December-
about.
December
So the
15th
sod, just
meeting.
to briefly describe it, it goes around the perimeter of the basketball. It goes around the perimeter of the pickleball. It goes by the sidewalk.
I have it here,
Okay.
thank you. So this one that Quinn
in the
has
berm.
is 2 basketball courts. Is the second basketball court coming back to you later? Or was that ixnayed from
It will be in a future phase.
a future phase? Okay,
What was, and like Dave said, what was approved by the council was 1 basketball court.
okay. Thank you, that helps catch me back up.
Haley, can I ask one clarification?
Please go.
The square footage for the future basketball court, is it planned to put sod there, or is that just gonna be padded out and left? Or are we gonna invest in sod and then tear the sod out while we go put the basketball court in later?
I think that's been decided. We were trying to figure out how to get sod in the first place. Now, if we get sod.
My guess is it'll be several years before that.
Well, that's the question. If it's within a couple of years, then maybe we don't, but if it's gonna be outstanding for 5, 6, 7 years, we put their basketball court, we probably want to put something in there.
I bet that's
I
sod
think-
everywhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
gosh, I wish Brandon was here because he's
I'm
in all
pulling,
that.
I'm pulling up the landscape plan right now to see how much sod is around the basketball court. Give me just one second.
I guess my question was it calculated, that area calculated as part of your sod sod
I believe
budget?
it was.
Okay.
Because we asked them to come back with a plan on sprinklers and sod to finish, what we originally had, and they didn't have the second basketball court, so.
The answer is yes, the landscape plan as is does have sod where the future basketball court would go.
Thank you.
Out of curiosity, how do we put in that second basketball court without ruining what we've already got down? Or what is the plan for that there?
I asked the same question.
I think one of the thoughts is, how well does the first one get used? If it doesn't get used, maybe we don't put it in.
Okay. And then now that I have a visual of the fencing, because I've been trying to follow this, and I know that you kind of were explaining it a few meetings back, way over my head. So you're talking about is this the south
The
side?
south side, yeah.
So just the south side, not all the way around the park, but just the south side of the park is where you would like to have fencing?
Yeah, because we have fencing just around here, and that's wide open to a field.
Okay.
So it makes it really simple. As we have gone through this process, like Quinn said, we have homeowners that want this fencing and this fencing and this fencing and this fencing, and don't put a fence, and please leave my bushes. And it gets really convoluted. Whereas if we just say, you know what, we're putting the fence in up right now, if that field ever changes use, the fence is already there. It keeps people in the park and not trespassing.
Thank you. That does help.
All right, so what does the council feel like we can approve at this point?
Well, my personal opinion is the Cherry Farms interim money, the sod and sprinklers. I'm concerned about the change order, but before we decide on the other 3 items, if we know we have to come up with another 21,000, are we going to have to cut one of those items?
Right.
But I don't have a problem moving the budget money over from Cherry Farms or whatever and diversifying it as it's outlined, if it completes that phase of the park, which it pretty much, I mean, at least gives it a, I'm not saying it does every amenity in the park, but it completes it so that it's a finished product.
I agree. This change order, like Dave said, this is the first time we saw it. So I really want to know more because that's news to us. And we have scrutinized, just for the record, we have scrutinized every penny that has gone into this over meetings every 2 weeks and emails. And this has not been an easy process. So we've put a ton of time into this. So I am really surprised about this change order. I did want to say, oh my gosh, I just lost my thought. Cherry Farms, okay, Amy, please know that we're going to do something, okay? I promise. We're not leaving all the other parks. We want to have a finished park, and I think that's something important. That right now, in somebody's backfield, or excuse me, in their backyard, it's just been like that for years and years and years. It's just this unfinished park, and I feel like we owe it to the rest of the citizens to finish it. So that's why I'm pretty passionate about making sure we get this project completed, because there's not another parcel that the city owns that's unfinished like this.
As far as the change order, is this gonna stop construction until we have an answer on this, or what?
I don't know. I need to find that out.
They're getting very close to needing that in.
Yeah, I
can
think
tell
they
you
would
that.
need to know soon. For maybe ease of mind, there's nothing we can do as far as the why it's coming forward now. But as far as ease of mind from a financial standpoint, again, Mac and I have come through our park impact fees. And I was really excited to tell everybody, as we are looking at the payoff schedule, we wanted to essentially provide a payoff schedule, right? Any loan documents would show, here's your payoff schedule to the capital projects. And based on the amount of park impact fees that we have, the payoff schedule actually is quite substantial for most of that 250,000 to be able to be paid off with park impact fees by the end of this fiscal year. To the tune of probably 150,000 of the 250 we could essentially pay back this fiscal year. So not to say let's delay the payoff schedule. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there are park impact fee money sitting there, and this is a park project that is specifically designed and outlined for park impact fees. So again, to me, it's more of a priority conversation than are we going to spend this money on parks? Yes, we are. We have to legally. The question is, when are we going to spend it and which parks are we going to spend it in? So
Sorry,
in
Dave,
yeah.
can you just repeat that number? We could pay off how much by the end of this
I
fiscal
think
year?
that we could pay off about 150,000
Of the 400?
The 200.
of the
200?
250.
Okay.
What we're essentially saying is we anticipate receiving this fiscal year about $150,000 of park impact fees.
Okay,
That
thank you.
If the very first thing we do with that money is pay off the loan, we'd be paying off about $150,000 of that $250,000 loan this fiscal year by June 30th, 2022. That, of course, would have to come back with a number of these decisions, well, all of these decisions, as an actual budget amendment. So you'd see that in the future on an action item to make a budget amendment for this, whatever decision is made tonight. So this is a decision about moving the project along and what can and can't be done, and money being part of the budget so it can be spent and managed that way. But the paper trail would be an official budget amendment would come back as well.
So if I might propose something, the Cherry Farms interim, talking with Curtis, we definitely want to get that back to a usable. We improve the infield, we fix up the grass that was torn up because they thought it was going to be torn up anyway, and it's just all lumpy. So all that would be brought back to a usable state. So that one needs to be done. That money would stay there at Cherry Farms. It sounds like most people are in agreement with the sod and sprinkler proposal, and the fencing, I would say we would like to do. The other two we could put on hold if you want, or if everybody wants to just say yay on that, but those two could be on hold until we figure out this change order for the electrical. But if that's amenable to people, then I would propose we approve the Cherry Farms interim, the sod and sprinklers, and at least the fencing be reallocated from the original plan for Cherry Farms Park.
Sorry, bike track, you mentioned you set aside 20,000, but you haven't quite had the time to solidify numbers. Do you feel that is enough that will actually go that far, or do you?
It's so hard to say. I feel like, we could spend $200,000 on it if we wanted.
Of course.
So for us to ask for 20,000, it just doesn't go far enough. I feel like 20,000 is definitely gives us something, because as is right now, we utilize the dirt that we have there, and our contractor has been willing to help us with some grading, which has been a huge advantage for us. So I appreciate that immensely, but that's what we have.
And with the 20, can you tell me what you would like to add to it?
Different material, fill material. And so either make it not super clay material, but material that won't just blow dust everywhere, right? So it stays on the track, or gravel to delineate it. So depending on, our next meeting we have with our group that's willing to help us out, we'll know what more we can do. But we need to have something budgeted there.
In terms of xeriscaping, were you able to look into costs at all? If you were to even say take 30% of this park, 40% of the park and xeriscape it?
We didn't get that far into the conversation, no.
Sometimes that's more.
I agree. Sometimes it is more.
I know.
So I'll just say kind of where I'm sitting right now, the fencing and the trees, I feel like those can be pushed back to another time. The sod and the sprinklers, I can really understand the importance of this, as neighbors are over there having an area that has no vegetation and is just blowing dust everywhere, and also just for park users. I would like to know if there's any ability to if xeriscaping, not only just for cost, but for water-wise saving, and I would just like to see if there's any other options. Hydro seeding.
Hydro seeding was barely less than sod.
Barely
less than sod.
$11,000 difference.
Was the hydro seed, was there options available for better water conservation than the sod?
I have no idea as far as what the seed content was, if it was anything like that.
Okay.
I'm happy to revisit the xeriscape. Where we're running into, I feel like, is now we spend more money on engineering and time to figure out what that is and to go back and forth and get another, because then we have to redesign it with what parts we want in xeriscape and then figure out what materials we want and then come back. I'm happy to do that. It just, we'll put it off again. So, but I'm not dissuading that. I'm just saying we will pay more in engineering to do that.
Blair, what do you think?
I agree with what Quinn said. I'm willing to move forward with the 10,000 for the Cherry Farms, the 135,000 for the sod and sprinklers, and currently budget $20,000 for the bike track. If we can come in under and find other money, I mean, I think the fencing is critical though.
So you say the fencing, the sod and sprinklers, and the.
No, so the bike track,
Okay,
so first three.
all right.
I do think the fencing needs to be done if we don't have to deal with some of the changes, but if we start running out of money again if we have to deal with the changes.
The fencing is probably the most time sensitive one.
Oh, is it? Then I would,
It is. I'm not sacrificing my bike track. See how our meetings go? Every penny. So
Angie, do you want it all?
yeah, I want it all. And I want a statue of something in there, but Bigfoot.
Wayne, do you want to weigh in?
Oh, yeah,
Councilman Windsor?
but I'll reserve most of my comments. My one concern that hasn't been addressed is you bring up change order number 4. And I want to take a step backwards. When this project was approved, I thought there was a contingency budgeted in to account for change orders. And if we're bumped up against that and we're going to exceed that, I'm a little concerned about what allowances are we going to need for any future change orders that might come. And we start allocating all these monies and then the next change order comes up, where's that going to come from? We're back to the same discussion again. So I'm trying to balance in my mind. The basic need for me is the first two. I think those are the given. And I'm kind of like, well, maybe we need to hold on to some of the monies, the park impact fee monies for potential change orders that we don't foresee coming. And then make some of these decisions toward the end of the project if they're still available. And we see when we're 75, 80% done with the project and the major change orders have since are behind us in the rearview mirror, we might be in a better position. Yet we could allocate the money right now. It's only $20,000. I do think the bike is a higher priority. So I like the first three, but I'm comfortable for the first two. Kind of wishy-washy on the next ones until we get a better understanding of what we're doing with the budget going forward.
Can I speak to the change order situation? You're absolutely right. There was a contingency there. And as the committee has talked through everything, the goal is to put as much money into usable amenities as possible, right? And I think it speaks to how tight the budget is and has been if a $21,000 change order on a $1.4 million project is past the budget and now needs reallocation of funds. The other change orders were within our contingency amount, but we're essentially saying the contingency amount is now gone, right? If a 21,000, because our policy allows for change orders not to come before the council if it's within budget and with under a certain percentage of the project cost. Well, we're now past the point of budget. And so that's why it becomes a budget conversation and a resource allocation from the council. And you're exactly right that the future change orders, whatever they may be, don't get approved until the budget is there. And so that would have to come before the council, and we don't know what those are.
When's the go, no-go decision required on the bike track, Angie?
That's a good question. We could put, in my mind, and I can't believe I'm going to say this. I would put the fence. Oh my gosh, it makes me sick just even say it. Because of all of the issues we've had with fencing, I hate to put money in fencing, but I feel like it's important. But to answer your question, we could put the bike track off a little ways if we needed to. I don't have a date. We were hoping to have something brought before the council for September 14th. So work could proceed on that this fall. I would love to do that, but knowing that we can't do any landscaping or anything until spring, if we had to put it off, we could.
I guess that's what I was thinking, is sequencing the events. You can't put the sod in until after the bike pass in, and the sod's not going to go in until next spring.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say critical was
The fencing.
the fencing for your time schedule?
Our bids for fencing, they're not giving us because of the price is changing constantly. They're putting fencing in, when is that? Next week, 2 weeks?
So there was an amount of fencing that was already ordered, right? The materials are already ordered, and so that's scheduled to go in very soon.
Is it sorry, what type of fence is it?
Chain link.
Chain link.
It is going to be chain link going outside. Okay.
With the
I'm sorry,
Black
The black vinyl on that part too, right?
PVC
part of the
coated.
fence is already ordered? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, it
Not
Right.
of this fence,
And if I remember correctly, the discussion was we could add on to it
now,
if
but
we
Mhm.
do what else we
that's
wanted
why
right
it's
now.
time sensitive.
Right.
Can I make a motion?
Make a motion,
bet.
please.
I would love that.
I'd make a motion that we approve moving the funds from the Cherry Farms budget, monies currently budgeted for Cherry Farms projects over to, I guess I should rephrase that, leave $10,000 to Cherry Farms for interim projects to bring that up to where we want it, and then reallocate those funds for the sprinklers and sod and the fencing in the Canyon Meadows Park.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment? 2 and 4, yeah. Okay, if there's no further comment, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
I had a question.
Oh, can we
she
go
ask?
back and
Yeah.
have comments quick?
Wayne,
Wayne did.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so if we've allocated it, if we leave 10,000 and we've allocated and, or would approve for these 3 items, where does the rest of that money go? Back to impact fees?
Well, it just sits and waits until it's allocated for a future project.
It's just here.
It's still in the budget.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
That's okay.
That's why it can be readdressed later. So,
Okay. Now we'll have our roll call vote.
aye.
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 I thank you.
Aye.
Okay, and the motion carries unanimously. All right. Next item is Resolution 21-43, Holiday Hours Policies and Procedures Manual Update. Dave, could you?
Sure. I'll give a quick overview. The Admin Finance Committee discussed this and wanted to bring this forward to the full council for consideration. We have a number of holidays outlined in our policy manual, and full-time employees receive holiday pay. However, part-time employees do not. And we've specifically carved out, due to various reasons, premium holidays that's identified in the policy manual, which is double time pay for public works employees and fire employees on premium holidays, which are 6 identified holidays. The other remaining holidays, part-time staff does not receive any holiday pay for when they work. Think recreation front desk staff when the FAC is open on our holidays and City Hall is closed. Or when the fire department is staffed on holidays, again, not premium, but just regular holidays, they've been getting straight time for those hours. And we looked at that from a number of different lenses, from a scheduling lens of being able to incentivize employees to work on those holidays when they're not interested in that, from a financial perspective of how much additional money that would cost the city. The cost is minimal. It's about $6,500 for the whole year for all of the employees that this would affect. And that wouldn't require additional budget change. We think that we can make that work within currently budgeted amounts. And so the committee wanted to bring that forward as a conversation for the whole council to add that language and clarify who's allowed to receive time and a half for working on holidays. So the policy change, as you see, is clarifying that full-time employees have the option of time and a half or a separate day, and adding one sentence in the policy manual that says part-time employees are eligible to get the time and a half.
I feel like that's appropriate. Let's do it.
I would agree. I just have one question. When did an employee's birthday become a holiday?
Holy crap. Are you not celebrating August?
I have.
Thank you.
been.
Thank you.
I thought that was the day everyone had to work.
That is, I was surprised when I
I was
started
raised
working here
that
too. It's a great holiday.
What? Is this really a thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
You guys approved the policy manual update
Yeah,
just
didn't
a
you
few
read
months
that?
ago, by the way.
Sorry, I guess I just
That
missed
didn't
one.
change, and so it wasn't
I'm
highlighted
just
as a
thinking of all
change.
the days I've worked on my birthday in my life that I didn't get extra holiday pay. Darn it. There we go.
It's been 5 years at least. Apparently, it's been at least 5 years, so.
Okay, before my time then, there's my excuse.
Yep.
There we
All
go.
right.
So I feel like this almost goes back to other discussion, but our staff here works really hard and we try hard to have competitive pay, and we don't always make it we're competitive, but I think this is just one benefit. Can I say that? Is that a nicer way to say it? This is a good benefit. Let's make a motion. What is this?
Resolution 2143.
21.
Mayor, I make a motion. We approve resolution 2143, holiday hours policy and procedures manual update.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we'll have a roll. Oh, any further comments? We'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. An easy one. Okay, new business is next. Do we have any new business? Okay, hearing none. I'm going to go to our reports. Central Weber Board is directing staff to look into the financial aspects of expansion into West Weber. There's a lot of development going on out there, industrial park and a lot of residential. Otherwise, they're going to build a couple of lagoons to service the area, which is not ideal. And so that's something that we're looking into as far as cost. So, and then ATC, Prop 1 funds can be used for trail maintenance, just so you're aware. National transportation officials recently approved more than a 550-mile expansion of bike routes in Utah from Idaho border to Arizona border. It's been approved by the U.S. Bicycle Route System. The newly designated routes enhance safety and ease for biking in Utah and boost Utah's total bicycle route system to around 960 miles of streets, highways, and trails for rider use throughout the state. Okay, that's all I have to report. Let's go to Councilman Halverson.
I can't find my notes. Can't remember what day we met on Public Safety Committee.
I have it.
I'm sure Haley has it.
I got you covered.
Most items have been discussed.
It's July
We did
21st.
discuss the issue that was brought up in our last council meeting about the sign. The UDOT did complete their speed study. Their response, as many of you saw, was that the speed limit should not be changed down from 45 to 40. As of recent, yeah.
Okay.
It's a June study, I believe. So they did do the study. We just hadn't seen the speed study in front on South Weaver Drive down towards, I don't know, east end of town.
Well, that would, sorry to interrupt.
You're good.
We kind of suggested they wait until school was back in, so doing it in
So
June.
their comment
They
back to
did.
Dave, and Dave can reiterate this, but is that it would not make a difference.
Yeah, they essentially said a speed study is different than an overall traffic study. And the speed study is simply looking at the speed of traffic in the area. And that a 20-30 minute window in the morning and in the afternoon is immaterial to the overall results of the study. So we did bring that up and said, we want you to do this when school starts. And they said it won't make any difference. And they did it in June.
Along those same lines, the liability question was asked about the sign and the site triangles. Since UDOT came back and did not reduce the speed limit on their own, a comment was made, and I would suggest that we have further discussion with UDOT, and whether that be the mayor and someone else on the Public Safety Committee, the mayor and Dave, however we want to do it. I would suggest that further discussion be had with UDOT regarding the speed limit. I still don't understand quite why that can't be consistent down South Weaver Drive and not increased. And that would decrease the city's, the site triangle would change drastically, and the liability issue would probably go away. There are some other things we can discuss as a Public Safety Committee, but as far as right turn only lanes and all sorts of different things on 2700, but that's further discussion. So that was discussed. We've also started discussions about our sheriff's contract, and many of you, that will be discussed further. So I think that's it in a summary.
All right, thank you, Councilman Halverson. Councilwoman Albert.
So I attended the RAB meeting for Councilmember Halverson on July 29th. You're gonna have to make sure I get this right. So it was really going over the 2018 5-year update. So OU 1, 2, and 4 are still in progress as far as what the update was from 2018. OU 1 did complete some of their parameters, but they still had a couple of others. OU 1 is still showing that it is shrinking according to their data. OU4 is still under investigation for the remedial action of the landfill for the second landfill till 2 for the source of contamination. They are also trying to look into different options to accelerate the remediation of the TCE in the groundwater. And they're hoping to have more information back by 2022, which will be your next meeting in April. And then OU15 is their ROD is nearly complete. That is the OU, that's the bottom of OU2. And it is happening from a vapor intrusion from a sewer line. So they have installed some vents on it. It impacts about, what, 12 different OUs, I believe.
Yeah, it does. It's the one that where they're putting the detectors in everybody's home.
Yep, so they're working on their air sampling program to get more results and data. So they're hoping to have that ROD done in their April 2022 meeting as well, so that they can start their 5-year review on that OU. So how'd I do? Is that all correct?
Very good.
Okay. As far as the PR committee met, we discussed a number of different options or a number of different items. We had our tax increase, which we had staff putting out little memos, which they did fantastic on. That was thanks to Trevor and Alicia, I think, as well, on the little snippets. Was that you, Trevor? Shaylee. Oh, sorry. Proper credit where proper is due. That was all for Shaylee. We also decided or just discussed the upcoming wrap tax. We have we're pretty confident that will be approved to go on the ballot. So getting some information out about that and how that will affect our parks budget and what benefit that would be to the city and what it would be for citizens. We have our candidate questions went out for the city council members. The mayoral candidates are already up. The city council candidates all got the exact same questions. I'm hoping to have those up at the beginning of September. There is a meet the candidate night scheduled with the League of Women Voters. We have 2 dates that we're looking at. The YCC will be helping with those. Angie's part of both PR and YCC, so she'll be excused from that as a candidate. We are looking into the location of that. It looks like it will probably be at the Family Activity Center, but just kind of keeping an eye on any restrictions that may come up with Delta or anything. It will be moved here where it can be streamed. And then the major thing that's been taking all of our time is our city website. I can't quite put into words the amount of hours that has gone into this website in this month. I think that's what my life consists of at this time. I'm sure Alicia feels the same way. The website's been, you crank something a little bit over here and this whole site falls down. So it's been a lot of trial and error, and we make a lot of progress and then we fall right back behind. But we are at what, T-minus what, Alicia? 7 days. T-minus 7 days. We are on track to make that for our September 1st unveiling. We have just a few minor things. We're going through our final checks of QA and fixing a couple of things. Again, Alicia's just been amazing. Trevor's also been a little bit of our IT guy when nobody else can figure it out. He seems to have the solution for us in 5 seconds flat. And Dave's been a great cheerleader. So I'm just kidding. And Shaylee has also just been really, really helpful in this. Shaylee, Alicia, and I have been going through most of this throughout the entire month. So it is very near ready, and we hope you like it, because if you don't, too bad. That is it.
Okay, Councilman Soderquist.
Just 2 things. We covered a lot of stuff that we talked about from the Admin Finance Committee. Blair, when you mentioned about the sheriff contract, are you talking about, or were you aware they are looking at upping their charge because they're losing a lot of the county work?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's an
That,
unfortunate situation.
that's
yeah.
the total discussion, yeah.
Okay. All right. The only other thing I'll update on is the gravel pit dust situation. We have 19 dust collection boxes throughout the city. We've been gathering dust over the last 3+ weeks. We have
I've been
some
gathering dust a lot longer than that.
Well, yeah. Touche. Anyway, we've been measuring the dust that we've been collecting for a little over 3 weeks. That information is going to be taken back to the gravel pits, and we hope to work with them on trying some different things to see if things will improve by different things that they might try. So anyway, we are moving forward. We don't have an answer yet, but we are at least gathering data so that we can talk real amounts and understand where it's blowing more than others.
Right. All right, thank you. Councilwoman Petty.
Thank you, Mayor. We spoke about most of our parks meetings. We are, however, going to work on our train club agreement again and bring that up forward. So at our next meeting, we need to ensure that that's on our agenda. The YCC year is coming to an end, and we had a new batch of applicants, and so we're excited to be able to swear them in at our first meeting in September, which will be great. We have a lot of awesome things scheduled already. We had a really good advisor meeting, and so it's going to be awesome. And then I just had one question that I forgot if I could ask the public safety. I've asked, but I want to make sure that it doesn't get forgotten. In my hometown, they have a volunteer sheriff's program. I don't remember what they call it, but it's like volunteers, community policing, something.
And, oh, sorry. You asked about this once before with leaving a car here and all that?
Yes. Does Davis County offer anything like that?
No, and it was absolutely,
And did they laugh
Good.
at your face?
well, we talked about it, and I believe Derek was part of that discussion that there are some serious liability issues with that, and
Understood.
it would just, their past experiences have been very, very negative.
Okay. I just know that that's been successful in Weber County, and so I was trying to figure a way to help us out. Appreciate you doing that.
But it's maybe more discussion as we meet with other
Okay.
departments.
I
Awesome.
think so. Your solution is that we should just be a part of Weber County rather than Davis.
That's not what I said.
Well,
I'll
hey,
say it.
You're gonna stir the water
Oh,
there.
man. Okay, that was all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Winter.
I want to thank all the other committees for the reports and the updates. Appreciate that. And special thanks to Quinn and his efforts on the gravel pits. I think we're heading in a great direction. The Planning Commission did recommend for our consideration the IADU ordinance. So it's going to come forth on September the 14th, just to put that on your radar. With that recommendation, they also had the question about, they made a request for off-street parking to be looked into for consistency. And don't know if the question was asked of staff or they're asking of the city council, but the code committee took that question up today and want to bring it forth to this council with regards to, is that something they would like staff to work on behalf of the planning commission and get some information back to them. The code committee thought it was a worthwhile exercise. It needs to happen. But the planning commission doesn't direct staff. The council directs staff through the mayor. So I'm looking for a little feedback from the council. Think on that for a second as I give the rest of my report. As we get into the parking, and I'm going to quote staff on this one, we're untangling the Christmas lights.
Hey, that was me.
You're part of the code committee, okay. But I would add that we're also trying to find the weak light bulb within the untangled Christmas lights. So it builds as you start delving into it. It builds and it builds. Staff have very early draft of the development agreement ordinance. And this is a work in progress. This will be something that'll be brought forward in the coming months. We also are recommending, and I didn't hear it in the mayor's report, but just as a reminder, we're hopeful to have a work session in September, on September 21st. If we could put that on your calendars, is that still a go, Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. To talk about fiber in the city. We have reviewed the request for proposals. Staff's put together a presentation to introduce that information, but there is a key question, philosophy, if you will, that the council will be asked to answer on that date to help us make further decisions. And that's going to be, as a city, do we follow a utility model for fiber, or do we follow a subscriber model? And there are pros and cons to each, and there are differences to each with regards to which proposals we can narrow it down to and want to proceed. A utility model, if you will, is no different than your water, sewer, storm drain. It is a utility. Everybody participates. That's one program. The subscriber model is those who want it, pay for it. And there are different aspects of how that model can be brought forward. So that's going to be a question of the council that's going to come out of that work session and for the public to consider when we present that information moving forward. So back to my question, do we think it's a valuable exercise for staff to delve into the parking ordinance at this time? I would recommend yes, but I'd like to entertain what the council has to say on that.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. I actually forgot about planning commission in my notes.
Well, yes.
Just to clarify, you mean
Off-street parking.
For
months,
IAB.
or what are you talking about? For the whole city? Or are you talking about specifically for the,
When you talk about the short-term rentals, but specifically the internal accessory dwelling units.
Oh, yes,
there's
okay.
There's one provision that the cities can require one additional off-street parking. But when you start talking about that, well, does that mean hardscape? Does that mean concrete, asphalt? Can they park on the grass? Can they park on the front lawn? And then how do you require them? Once you require them to have the parking, how do you make them use it? And that seems to be the enforcement aspect. So those are two of the bigger questions when it comes to off-street parking is what can we require? How do we require it? What is that going to do to the existing residents who maybe use the side of their house to park an RV, a boat, or something like that? Do they need to be on concrete, or can it be rock, or can it be grass? What's the intent behind that? So there's a lot of untangling of the Christmas tree lights, if you will, as we start delving into that. But it started with that question. If I got planning commission's request right. All right, Julie's shaking her head, so I think we got it right.
okay, yes, I agree. Thank you.
All right. Great. Dave, you have any?
Yeah, this isn't so much a report as kind of a revisit of the parks item, because I texted Brandon for additional clarification on the criticality of the decision and the timing of the decision. And this is the response that he gave. He said, Hogan had an oversight on getting electrical to the pickleball lights. The portion of the change order that was associated with that was $40,000. They are just eating that cost. However, moving the panel and providing future service from that panel is about $21,000. That was the change order portion that he felt was our cost, and Brandon agrees. However, without the panel in that location, the current configuration for the pickleball lights cannot be served in the way that it is currently designed. And so he basically said his exact words in the follow-up text was, I didn't make it very clear, it's not very optional. So additional information about that decision, and if that provides additional clarification and discussion. Again, I think there's a conversation about oversight or not, and why that is the way that it is. But as far as the project itself and what funds would be used to pay for that, it would be park impact fees that we would use to pay for that.
How soon does it have to go in? Is that like immediate while they're doing all their other
It would, the conversation we had in our last meeting about switches and things for pickleball courts, all of that would be affected by this, is what Brandon.
Right, and that's
Good.
going in within the next month.
that's
Right.
going in
Yeah.
right away, because the materials for that have already been ordered.
So are you saying it needs to be approved or disapproved tonight?
The phrase was critical. Brandon said it was critical.
So how do we,
Yes, we have.
How about,
If you would,
can
pref- if
can we,
you would
can we
prefer-
approve the funds without approving the change order and let the committee dig into it? Because
That is an option.
I really think that needs to be, I mean, one, they just don't eat $40,000 that easy either. So it kind of, there's a whole lot more to
You want to
that
know what the story is.
And I mean, I don't have a problem approving the funds and putting it in on the committee and Dave and everybody to come back with it if it has to be approved tonight.
Okay, is that a motion?
Say the amount.
21,000?
You want to do it? Go
No.
for it. Oh, you want me? I
Mm.
won't. I'm not running through. Okay. On Canyon Meadows Park, I make the motion to approve the funds for of 21,000 for, how do I say that? Approve the additional funds of 21,000 and allow the committee to approve those for the change order as they see fit. Is that, how do you word that? Otherwise, you're approving that change
So-
order specifically.
Just relative to the electrical panel discussion.
However you want to write that up.
I think you need to say it how you want it written up.
Does that work, Dave?
I would prefer a little bit more clarification. I think the concept
I'll
is
make
fine.
the motion to approve the amount of $21,000 for electrical change orders. I'm just trying to think how to say it, but
From the original cherry farms.
oh yeah, from the Cherry Farms budget. Is that where we want to take that money from?
I thought it was park impact fees.
well, no,
Fund.
Did you say we have?
well, it's right here. Remember, I asked you where it was.
It's out here in
It's
the bubble.
Ultimately, it's the same
Pot
pot of
money.
money. One is just already allocated to Cherry Farms and some of it is not allocated yet. It's just sitting there.
I just don't want to approve it specifically. I mean, we're not approving the change order anyway. So I'll just make the motion to approve the amount of $21,000 from park impact fees for change order number 4 for electrical work and leave it to the committee's discretion to review the change order.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further comment?
I would have rather it been increase the budget 21,000 and let them allocate it, but I go with what you're saying. I understand the intent of what you're trying to say.
Okay.
Is
Then
that
no
a second
change to the
motion?
motion?
No, it was comment, so I made a comment.
Okay.
So the benefit of increasing it though then allows those other funds to potentially be used for bike track, other
Well,
things that are.
That was
identified
the
already.
fear of that comment, so.
Yeah.
Wait, what? All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment? We'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Windsor.
Hi.
Aye.
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 And the motion carries. All right, Dave, did you have anything else?
Will you clarify for me if that was from the 190 from Cherry Farms or that was additional?
It's all one pot of money, Dave.
Yeah.
I know.
But you just got done saying that out of your
Okay.
mouth.
Sounds good. Got it. I don't have anything else.
Okay,
Cherry
Mac,
Farm.
did you have anything else? Trevor, anything?
You all are fantastic. But no, I don't have anything.
Derek, did you have anything you want to say?
No, thank you.
All right, Michelle, Lisa?
Yes, we put out a public notice today, and I just wanted to put that out there for the information pamphlet for the RAP tax. I need to have anyone who wants to argue for or against that by September 7th. and the information's on our website.
Great. All right, thank you. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?